Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our City Council study session. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Adamson.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Cheatham.
Here.
Lurid.
Here.
Ortega. Stevens.
Here.
Black.
Here. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 2. And I'm going to apologize before I ever start. I'm probably going to butcher this name, but I'm going to ask for some clarification when you get up here. Sister Cities Foundation of Pocatello update. Representatives from the Sister Cities Foundation of Pocatello will discuss the foundation's goals and projects regarding Pocatello's relationship with Mengel, Burkina Faso, Africa.
Thank you.
It wasn't very good, but
Well, you got it right. That's fine.
You did really good.
You did fine. So,
thank you.
yeah, my name is Dana Olson, and I'm currently the foundation president. And so I'm going to be talking about the foundation side, and Peggy's going to talk about the sister city in Mengel, Burkina Faso. So I want to thank you, first of all, for supporting the Sister City International dues that allows our sister city and the Japanese sister city to maintain a relationship with the communities that we have. So it actually benefits both organizations. The foundation, after discussion with Mayor Blad last year, it was requested that the sister cities either choose to be under the foundation for their function or to remain with the city of Pocatello. So the Sister Cities Africa is the only organization between those two that are currently functioning under the foundation. So last year, at the mayor's request, we updated our bylaws. We were already current with state and federal type stuff, so all I had to do was just change that address to my address, so it was away from the city of Pocatello, which we'd kind of already done. And so we are current with the bylaws. So the Japanese sister city during that time period decided to remain under the city of Pocatello. So they currently do not have a relationship with the foundation. Last June, Doug Worley contacted me about potentially having a relationship with the city with the foundation. I talked to the mayor, and we kind of laid out a proposal of how that relationship would work if they chose to do that. With COVID and everything, I haven't heard much from Doug, but I just want you to know what the parameters are that we have set forth in case they want to do that. First of all, there would be a written MOU between the Japanese sister city and us with the signature of the mayor, so that the city would be very aware of what that relationship would be. All money that would be deposited in their benefit would be deposited to the foundation in its own account, and there would be a manager in the foundation that would manage that money. So the Japanese sister cities would not have access to writing their own checks. I have volunteered to be that person. So, there would be, as the recommendations from the mayor, there would be somebody from the Japanese sister city, probably their chair, who is currently Doug Worley, I'm assuming, unless that's changed.
I think so.
Okay. He would be a representative on the foundation board to the Japanese sister city, and he would have full access to the information and everything about that account, but he would not be a signator on that account. It would be, well, I volunteered me. So, so it'd be me if that would ever happen. So, and then as the recommendations and expectations to the city of Pocatello, they would actually, if they chose to do that at any time down the road, they would have to put in a request for funds from the foundation, just like they would have to do with any funds that are with the city of Pocatello. So, and as far as I know, you can correct me, Mayor Blatt, if there was any other things that you and I talked about, but I think those were the main talking points of this relationship if they chose to do that.
If I remember right, that is right. That was the main talking points, and that's really truly what it came down to.
Yeah, and that
they gave up some representation on the foundation side when they decided to go and stay with the city. And so
Yeah.
that was,
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I've even talked to Ann about, I mean, because I was, as the chair of the foundation, I was getting their minutes and stuff, and I said, well, they're not having anything to do with us. So as far as I know, our two organizations are completely separate. The only relationship we have is with you all and the sister city's commitment that you still have as a city.
well, and you bring up a good point. The minutes and stuff, the foundation will not fall under public record or public open meeting laws, and for Africa, but for the Japanese, they have to follow everything that the cities and stuff have.
Yeah.
And so that was another sticking point, because they thought they could jump into both. There was
Yeah, they
well, we
wanted to
could
be-
just meet whenever we want if we're there, but we want to be with you. And we said, no, this is the line. And so that's what they decided.
Yeah, that's what they decided. And then I was surprised when they came back and, thought they, could do something. And then after I talked to the mayor and we set these parameters, I haven't heard from them. So I'm assuming, I don't know if COVID has anything to do with it, but I'm assuming I won't hear from them. But I just wanted you to know, because we want to make sure that we maintain a good relationship with you. That was my first priority, is we want to keep our sister city happy. We're doing some amazing things. We've been with them for 21 years, doing some amazing things, and Peggy's going to talk about that. So I just wanted to let you know what we've done, and we really appreciate your efforts, and the mayor's been very helpful as far as helping us, go through this, and, has been very supportive and understanding once we got down talking about stuff. I mean, I think it's worked out probably good for all of us. So,
Agreed.
yeah. So, any questions about that relationship or anything about the foundation or how we're functioning? So, okay, thank you.
Okay, it's my turn, I guess. We still have the students in school, but they are not going to school in the village because of the old regime that was in Burkina Faso was taken out a few years ago. And they have had people come in from the border countries like Mali, which borders where our sister city is. It's only 20 miles from the Mali border. And they have come in, and they're kind of an arm of Al-Qaeda. And they have come into the village and have kind of decided that the girls can no longer go to school and the boys will be limited on what they can learn. So what the powers that be in in Kouroumagal, decided that they would take all the students out that were going to go to school and take them away from there because it's on the border. And a lot of them some are in Nuna, and some are in,
Is it that yeah, it's very. Their language, their spelling of things is hard. It's like dee-boo-doo-goo-doo or something like that. It's very long. It's like wagadoogoo, I get, but the dia-doo-goo-doo-goo, whatever, it's, yeah.
Yeah, and so they have some there. And what they've done is they've grouped them in, they have a place for all of them that they stay there. And they have one of the mothers or a couple of the mothers that stay with them there. And they take care of the students and make sure that they're fed and clothed and everything. But one of the problems last year when we sent them the money for the students to go to school, later on they needed some more money to go buy food for the students. And because of the situation in the village, they couldn't get their parents to bring them food and do that. So we sent them $200 to buy food, which you think, $200? That feeds a lot of people over there. Right now, they have the CFA which is the Central Franc of Africa. And right now on the exchange rate, I think last month when I looked, it was like 0.0015 compared to a dollar. That's what the exchange rate is. And so the dollars go a long ways over there right now. We did send them some money. We didn't have for the kids to go to school again, but we didn't have as much because we have not been able to do fundraising this past year because of the coronavirus. Also, they were hit really hard over there with the coronavirus, and a lot of people did die, not only in the village, but everywhere in the whole country. They thought because it was warm there all the time, they wouldn't get it, and that wasn't the case. And they refused to wear masks, and none of them wore masks, and a lot of them died. Because as we've come to know here, that if you have already existing problems, then you are going to be hit harder with it. And where a lot of the people there do not have the medical attention that they need all the time, and they also don't eat a very healthy diet, and because they don't always have food to eat, then a lot of them died because of that, and because they just simply didn't wear masks. So that's where we're at now, and there are students still going to the university, and there are students going to grade school outside of the village, and they do not have any teachers in the village now because the people that have come in ran them all off. So they've left, and so they're not really being taught, any math or languages or skills or anything else that they were. And I guess that's really what we have to report.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing that some of you are new. So actually, Quail, the village, through our efforts and the country's efforts, actually has a primary school and a secondary school. So kids normally could go all the way through junior high, and they're not allowed to right now because of the political situation over there. So, there's teacher housing. Everything's in the village ready for school to be there. That some of you probably didn't know even had schools over there. You haven't been around, so. It's a pretty good system when it gets to run.
It is. And in fact, they have a higher rate of high school graduates. They have a higher rate of grade school graduates. They have a higher rate of high school graduates and college graduates that come from the village because of the efforts of this community of Pocatello and the people who are in it who have contributed to help with our education funding. It has been a blessing to them beyond compare. So go ahead.
I just wanted to know if before you both leave, if you could give me some contact information,
Yeah, I'm on yours already.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. You may not remember the
No, okay.
Yeah, but I'll give you some more, and then you can get paid.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any
other
questions? Thoughts, concerns?
So how, I know you don't go back every year, and right now, obviously, it's not going to happen. Is there any plans in the future, I would say in the next 5 years to?
We were going to go for the 20th anniversary, but that was put on hold because of the problems still in the country. They said it was not safe for us to come at all anywhere in Burkina. And in fact, they've had problems in the capital city as well, in Ouagadougou and in Bobodizio. And so they put it down those insurgents at that time, but they still linger along the border.
Well, then I would think Americans would be perfect targets.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Especially if you
No
try to
question.
educate people.
yeah.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah, no, I think Noel and that group, they took such good care of us. Well, Peggy's been there twice, I've been there one time. I mean, it was like,
They always take good care of you.
so when Noel says you're not coming, I believe him. When he says it's time to come, we're going.
Yeah.
So the answer is that we've been trying, for two different years now, and then so it's still on the radar screen, and yes, we're going to go. We just are going to wait till the world is a safer place to be.
Totally and completely makes sense.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you continuing this work, and because it is changing lives, and that's what it's
It
about.
is, and that's
Changing
the
lives.
reason that we do it, and it can show the humanitarian side of the people of Pocatello and those who care beyond themselves and what's in it for me kind of attitude. But there is something in it for everybody. It brings us together as a world. It makes people in other countries who have no idea about Americans that we are decent people and that we are not there to take over their lives and control them, that we want the best for them and we want them to be part of our world as well.
Absolutely.
So,
What's the nearest larger community?
to Cormangal
Yeah.
would be Nuna.
Looking at a map. Oh, there it is. Okay.
It's not on the map.
Well,
Nuna is okay.
Nuna is.
Yeah,
And
and-
Tugun could be on the map. How big?
Tugun? Yeah,
Tugun
Tugun.
might be another one, so it's sort of, you got Nuna, Tugun, and then we're still a little bit north of that, really close to the border. But yeah, no, the village isn't on the map. The village is like driving out on the Arco Desert through the dirt to get to. I mean,
Oh, that's
it's
nice
remote.
out on the Arco Desert.
Yeah, that's got good roads. That doesn't flood where they can't get in and out of the village, for during rainy season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a remote village, but it does have, buses and markets that actually come into the village, once a week. So they actually have things that come into the village. And Cormangal services the surrounding area. So there's lots of little kind of smaller, baby villages and, little groupings and stuff that actually come to the village too. So I think you said 4,000 people, about 4,000 in the village proper, but it served as a lot more beyond that just because it's kind of that little northern hub.
That's great.
So you found Nuna then, Rick?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So it's just straight north, probably right.
So it's in Kasi province?
No, I don't think so.
That's the one that Nuna's in.
I don't think
What's
it's
the one
in the
is there
same
another
province.
province just north of that?
No. No,
Oh.
north of that is Mali.
Okay, so it
Yeah,
might be-
it's just 20 miles from the border.
yeah, it's really close.
And Nuna's probably 50.
Yeah, so I think because Tugun was a little closer.
50, it's 50 miles to Cormangal from Tugun, and then
Or,
Nuna, and then Tugun's a little bit closer.
a little closer. It's a little bit bigger, but still smaller.
Interesting.
Yeah. If you ever want, we can bring pictures because there's some of you that haven't seen them. Sometime if, I keep
And I do
forgetting.
have a map.
Yeah, we keep forgetting we need to educate, but I think it's maybe I could just I've got a presentation with people being interested, if I just sent that to Connie or somebody, and then people can look at it, because then you won't get all the speaking points, but you can see the village, how the people live, what it looks like.
That would
Give
be
you a better
great.
idea. You'll be able to see the school, what the school rooms look like, because they have, up to 90 kids in a classroom.
I think it's on the website, Pocatello's website, under us.
Okay.
And I think you could go there and look and see.
See if you can do it. But if you can send a thing, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, I'll go over and get it sent to Connie and Ann.
Perfect.
Because I think I send it through them and then they send it to you all.
Super. Heidi?
Well, I just wanted to say thanks again for all that you do. I had a chance to meet with some Girl Scouts a few weeks ago, and I was explaining to them about our sister cities and about Armangel, and they just couldn't hardly believe, when I was describing there's not plumbing like you're used to, and I was telling them about the ambulance, that the committee helped them get, and I said, but it's not an ambulance like what you are envisioning.
Yeah,
And they
it's a
they
cart.
really couldn't even hardly believe what I was describing to them,
Yeah.
like you talked about. There's not a paved road for them to get to the hospital. It's out through the dirt and bumpy, and they just really couldn't even believe it. So thank you so much, and I think you have good hearts, and you're very
Thank you.
yeah.
Well,
it's
and
great.
they do too.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
I've never had a reception like we did when we went there. I mean, I was just like, that the whole village came out to greet us and, circled around us, and they had a big dance, and they made sure that, that we had an awesome experience, and they welcomed us into their houses, and it's very
Yeah, and those that
loving
have come
people.
here, like I know Jock, and
Oh, yeah,
and
Jock, yeah.
stuff. It's just so nice.
Yeah,
Just really.
yeah, he's still in the country.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of someone from the
Yes.
village. I mean, that's how they all are. I mean, we came to help them, and they wanted to give to us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the widow's mite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, thank you very much. Thank
You
you
bet.
for what you do. We'll look forward to those pictures and things that you send, and
Thank
we'll
you.
go from there.
Okay. all
Thank
right.
you. We will move on to agenda item number 3 is Regional Economic Development of Southeastern Idaho Ready Update. Teresa McKnight, Chief Executive Officer of Regional Economic Development of Eastern Idaho Ready, will be present to give the council an update of Ready's activities and achievements.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Connie, is this loaded up, or do I need to load it up?
It's not loaded yet.
You have that, just to make sure. No, those are mine. It's not recognizing it. Yeah, it's like this is really loose. It's not making a connection.
This one on the side. There's not. This one's on the back. There it is. Let's try it. Nothing. I don't know what other things we could do.
That's really strange. Would it help to reboot it?
Unlikely.
Okay. Yeah, that's really strange. Because I used it last time I came
Right.
in, so I... Yeah, it's like the computer's dead.
No idea.
Okay, all right, well, technology. For whatever reason, it's not reading memory sticks, so we're gonna have to kind of do a show and tell here with some slides that have been printed out. So I apologize for that, I don't know why, but we wanted to just bring you up to date. I can't believe it's been 3 months, or actually 4 months, since we last came in here. And do I need to wear this to present?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'll just keep sucking it into my throat then, so I apologize as it keeps going in and out. But It's really about thinking outside the box when we look at economic development. It's really looking at the economic viability of our region, and that's what we've been trying to focus on. And so I do want to talk about our low unemployment numbers of where we are currently, kind of post-COVID, but now we're going into that second stage of COVID. But right now, our unemployment numbers as of the end of September range between 2% and 3.7%. So Bannock County is the highest at 3.7%, with Pocatello at 3.6%. Madison County is at 2.1%, with Rexburg at 2%. So you can see the differentiation of where we are from the farther south to the northern part of our region. The state of Idaho sets at 4.2%, and we are one of 3 of the best states with the lowest unemployment numbers. Utah has beat us out by 0.1%, so they're at 4.1%, where the state of Idaho is 4.2%. When we look at where we were in April 2020, it's phenomenal what has happened to our economy because of business and community and civic leaders kind of pulling together and really wrapping their arms around our businesses to keep them in business. So in April, I just wanted to give you a comparison that Bannock County was at 9.9%. And Pocatello was at 10% during that time. And Madison County was at 4.8%, with Rexburg at 4.5%. So I think that, Madison has still kind of stayed pretty even, just within a few percentage points, where we've seen quite a gap of where we were when the pandemic hit. And I also think it's important to talk about the unemployment claims, when pandemic hit. And a lot of businesses were trying to pivot to keep things under control, especially those with large numbers of employees. Our unemployment claims for the state of Idaho were 72,000 in May. And we are substantially lower in our unemployment claims now. So we've really pivoted. We've recovered well, but it doesn't mean we're out of the red because of now stage 2 kind of hitting us of where we're going. But we are focused, again, you've seen the circles of all the areas that we're focused on, business retention, recruitment, expansion, workforce development and education, research and entrepreneurship and innovation, as well as regional investment and financial viability and strategic plan and marketing. So it's really taking that regional approach to economic development to strengthen both the regional viability and resilience, which really, that's a big word right now. We've always talked about resilience, but right now that is probably the buzzword, hot word for us right now, because it's our resilience as we're heading into phase 2. We're still focused around the 7 top sectors. Those are the strength of Eastern Idaho. That is really the strength of the 7 sectors, which is advanced manufacturing, agriculture, banking and finance, energy, healthcare, information technology, particular cybersecurity, outdoor products, and recreation. So we did launch a new website, and I think it's important to report that we do track the website. We track the activity, the traffic that's occurring on our website. And so during a 3-month period, we receive and we still continue to receive a report every week that talks about the number of users. So who are the new users? What are the existing users that are returning? What are the average hits per week? What are the highest per week? So our new users during that time period, the 3-month, was 990, which was 81.1% of the users. The returning users were 230, which was 18.9%. Average hits that we receive on our website per week are close to 100. Our highest in 1 week was 196. The most viewed pages are the main page, and as you know, on our main page, there's a lot of information on that page, and we specifically did that so that when site selectors come to our site, that the important information for them to consider an area is right there on the main page. So we grab them as they're looking instead of losing them, because if we can't provide the information they're seeking within 60 seconds, they're gone. We don't even know that they've looked at our region, our communities. So it's important that all that data be placed on that front page. And it's working because we're seeing that by the stats report that we receive. The main page, site selection, shovel-ready sites page, our industries, so they can see how that aligns with the companies that they're wanting to look at areas to relocate, and of course our news and happenings. They look at that to say, what activities are going on in this region, in this community? Is there a lot of movement? Are there new businesses? Are there businesses that are expanding? Are there a lot of creative and innovation happening within this area. And so they look at, there's kind of a checkoff list of what they look at. But the hits that we're receiving right now to our website are around the United States. So I just want to, and if I had my slides, I'd be able to show that to you. But I want to just let you know that the hits we're receiving around the United States are from Utah, California, so San Francisco, San Jose, San Diego, and Los Angeles, Washington, Seattle, Washington, in the Colorado State, Denver and Fort Collins, in Texas, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, in Arizona, Phoenix, Atlanta, Chicago, Memphis, Des Moines, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, North Carolina, Illinois, Ohio, and Indiana. So right now, our website is just a mass movement of traffic right now, which is exactly the reason why we revamped our website. It's doing what we wanted it to do, and we are gaining recognition. We are seeing that. We rolled out, as I talked about last time, the Shovel Ready Sites program, and we're seeing a lot of hits in that area. They're looking at the gold teardrop, what's shovel ready, permitting, zoning, some type of infrastructure is to the site. And then the green teardrop is open bare land, and the blue teardrop is buildings that are available. So since we've launched the website over the past 4 months, we've received more than a dozen new prospects. So again, when we look at the activity of what has occurred in this area over a 1 year or 12-month period of time, we're receiving more hits and more prospects interest than we've ever received before, which again shows what's happening to our economy, which showing companies want to get out of these big areas and come into areas like Eastern Idaho. So on the EI Square, the Eastern Idaho Entrepreneurship and Incubation Alliance program, a lot of activity is happening there. We are having a quarterly event. The next one is in January, but it's really to help entrepreneurs in our area push their ideas to market. It's to provide that platform where they can share experiences. So we want to kind of marriage, entrepreneurs to other entrepreneurs. We are finding, and just in my experience of working in this area for almost 30 years, that if entrepreneurs can collaborate and talk with other entrepreneurs, it really helps them get through their experiences and their systems that they're working through. And so they find out, hey, we've had the same challenges. Here's how we got over this challenge. And so it's a good way for them to interact. And it's really critical to build a strong and sustainable entrepreneur system when you're bringing this together. But we brought organizations together that are working together that have never worked together before. And I think that's probably the power of EI Squared, is that these are mentors, and these are not only mentors that work with entrepreneurs, but these are also mentors that have been an entrepreneur, that have succeeded, that have been there, done that, and are able to mentor those new entrepreneurs coming in. And so that to me is the strength of this program, as well as facilities. Entrepreneurs need a place to work. They need facilities. They need access to specialized equipment. So by bringing all of these mentors and partners together, we provide those resources that they need in order to push their idea to the market and to create a startup company. So the equipment, the programs, the connections, the partnerships. One area that we are looking at is Boise has a big pitch connection, pitch contest that they have every year. And so we are working with Trailhead in Boise to see what we can do here in Eastern Idaho to get a pitch contest over here. As we continue to grow our entrepreneur program and create more startup companies, that's an area that we feel is important for our entrepreneurs. But as we build this ecosystem and entrepreneurship here in Eastern Idaho, the other thing is that venture capitalists, angel investors, they're out there and they watch regions and they watch the activity. So as we build this ecosystem, there's more activity and there's more startups. I saw this in Utah. We could not get an angel investor to talk to any of our companies in Utah. But once we built that base and that base kept expanding and more entrepreneurs started coming out of that base, pretty soon we were important angel investors where we had never been before. So I know that can happen here in our region as well. As far as our regional economic development program, meeting monthly with regional economic development directors, we still meet monthly. We have open discussions. I think it's fantastic where we can talk about our communities, what's happening in our areas, that other communities step forward and say, hey, we've got this document or this form, or our mayor and council passed XYZ. It's a document we can share with you. So that collaboration is really working well as far as we're concerned. But it's really important to look at leveraging regional assets and regional resources. But the full regional collaboration is what's most critical. And that's really what site selectors and companies coming in is how well does the region work together? How well does leadership work together? And I think we're proving that we all want the same thing. And that's for all of us to succeed and to grow. And so I think that the route that we're on right now is just phenomenal. We have put together our objectives, which is the action of this group. So we're not meeting to just meet and talk. There has to be something that comes out of it, right? It drives me crazy to meet, and you meet for 2 hours or 1 hour or whatever, and you walk away and you don't even know why you met. And so if we don't have outcomes, then to me it's not even worth meeting. The accountability, which is the measurements, and of course the performance, which is the outcome. So that would be part of our yearly report, is what this group has been able to do working together. I did talk about last time the SBIR STTR program. It is still a critical, important program that really needs to be pushed here in Idaho. I just can't emphasize that enough. The SBIR program is a small business innovation research program, which is basically for private entrepreneurs to spin out an idea which has commercialized value that can get to the market. And so there are 17 federal programs that look for entrepreneurs that have ideas to support the efforts of each of those organizations. So it could be through the Department of Defense, DOD, Department of Energy, DOE, NIH, the National Institute of Health, the National Science Foundation, NSF. Any of these federal programs are looking for entrepreneurs. There's $3.7 billion that's awarded every year through the federal government to support these entrepreneurs. And I think that's what's most frustrating, is because we're behind. Idaho is behind in receiving this money. The STTR program is called the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. So it works similar to the SBIR program, but the entrepreneurs are asked to collaborate with a research institution like an INL or your university systems that are conducting research. So the two partners, the public and the private partnership we talk about, come together, and through that they work together to put an idea forward that has commercialized value. So READY is working with several state organizations right now. We're working together to really strengthen and grow this program. Every year this program has what's called a road tour. So all of the federal managers of these programs get on a bus and they drive across the United States. And they stop in what they call regions, which are by states. So there's usually 4 states within a region. And our region is the Rockies tour. They could not do that this year because of the COVID virus. So in August, we held a virtual road tour, and it was probably the most well-attended virtual event that we've had, or the road tour event has had here in the Rockies. So it's Montana, Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming that make up the Rockies. And for the past 3 years, Utah has led the way in the number of grants submitted and grants funded through this program. They have had as high as almost 90 grants funded in a year's time. Montana is the second highest with 32. Wyoming is third with a high number of 10. And you're thinking, oh my word, where is Idaho? The highest we've had is 7. Last year we had 3 grants submitted, 3 grants funded. That's not good. So we feel like in order to support the entrepreneurship efforts, EI Squared, that we put together, it's important. So we've been working with the Commerce Department, we've been working with the Boise Trailhead system and entrepreneur programs across the state of Idaho to say, how can we all come together and train and educate people about this program so we can get more grants. Even if we go to 3rd place and we're not in last place, we're happy. If we get to 2nd place and we beat out Montana, that's even better. I don't think we'll ever get to 1st place, but boy, we can put it as a goal for us to maybe in the next 3 years we'll be number 1. But we have to start somewhere because we can't continue to be in last place with this program. There's too much money that's not being brought into the state that needs to be brought in. So we have I developed a white paper concept of how I feel like we can grow this program. It's a program I worked with in Utah. It's a program I worked with in South Dakota and Montana. it's a program that we really need to strengthen and produce efforts here. So Reddy's leading the charge on putting that program together and getting our numbers up. We're also planning.
Teresa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a thought, I guess, or a question on that program. How, like, if we were to think of somebody, like I was thinking about those Titan guys, you know, like how would we get them in touch with that program, or maybe they already know about it, or I don't.
Yeah, just have them reach out to Reddy. Just have them reach out to me. And so what I do is I talk with them and find out about their idea, what it is they're trying to accomplish, and then I can bring those individuals around the table to actually help launch those efforts of what they need. So we can also educate them as to what the program is all about to see if it's something that's even viable for them to pursue.
Do we have their contact? Or do
I'll
we
get it.
Okay.
I'll get it.
So yeah, it's getting the word out of saying, oh my gosh, we heard from Reddy that there's this SBIR STTR program. Are you aware of it? If you're not, do you understand the amount of federal dollars that are available to support your efforts? And I think sometimes where entrepreneurs get really nervous is, oh, I don't know if I want to work with the federal government because of the paperwork that's required. But we have all of these people we've pulled together to say, not a problem. We'll sit down with you. We'll help you fill out that paperwork. We'll help move you through the system so you don't feel like you're doing it all alone. These are people that have worked with multiple federal grants, that understand the system, that know how to write them, that know the buzzwords and the language that need to be placed in the grants to kind of put them to the top to be able to be funded. So again, one of the individuals that we brought into the group, he has received 5 SBIR grants. And he has received 2 phase 2 grants. And those are the hardest because in SBIR, phase 0 is basically, I have an idea, can I even submit for an SBIR grant? So you submit for it and they say, absolutely, submit for phase 1. So phase 1 is up to $250,000. Phase 2 is up to $1 million of funding that you receive. You have a time period in which you have to spend and produce something during that time. But to get to a phase 2 SBIR grants are so competitive. So to have someone like him that's received 2 phase 2 grants is exceptional in an area like this. And so we have brought him to the table to say, help guide these individuals through the process since you've been there, done that. So he's basically entering phase 3, which is basically rolling out and commercializing his idea. So we're just excited.
A website or a brochure or something that we could pass along to people to,
Yeah,
if we encounter them, rather
Yeah.
than saying, oh, there's this program, I can't really remember the details of it, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a national program.
Okay.
Can you
It's-
remind us what SBIR stands for?
It's the Small Business Innovation and Research.
Okay, thank you.
And do they have to be, like, what requirements are there? Do they have to be like a somewhat new startup, or can they be just trying to expand, or what kind of?
Yeah, there's a lot of different kind of conditions that they have, requirements that they have to meet. So I'll send you that information rather than trying to go through all those requirements
Great.
and missing something, especially where it's an open public meeting, that I'll get you the information.
Okay, that'd be great.
And then that way, I believe there's multiple brochures I can send you as well. So it's they're really pushing this hard. So we're also looking at the planning for a decade of growth. So we're looking over the next 10 years what's happening on the nuclear side. So Eastern Idaho is very well known for energy. 2% of the energy generated in Idaho is carbon free. So we rank number 2 in the nation for that. Vermont beats us out as the number 1 state. But currently, as you know, I've talked about the 6 of 9 projects. The funding is there. Even with the change of leadership in Washington, D.C., the funds have been approved. They are, in the hands of the entities that they need to be into the hands of. So we formed the Nuclear Consortium to identify all those projects, small modular reactors, the versatile test reactor, the micro reactor, the battery technology that INL is working in, as well as the spent fuels center. So when we look at the Naval Reactor Facility, NRF, their construction started in spring, ramping up. They've got 150 construction workers on site right now. Their peak will be in 2021 with 500 construction workers on site. So we're excited to see that is going well. There have been new employees move in to work on those construction projects, and they've not had any problems finding housing so far. So that is good news because that's something we're very worried about. When we look at INL, New Scale, and UAMP, so that's one of the 5 programs, the NRF. Now we look at INL, New Scale, UAMPs, and FLOR. Construction startup for those, as we talked about, was 2024. That's what we've been talking about. Because of what's happened with UAMPs and with New Scale, it's pushed them about a year to 2 back. So we're looking at 2025, 2026 with approximately 5,000 construction workers on site. Again, that's 6 of the 9 projects. If the other 3 projects are approved, then that just adds to the numbers even more that we need to work through. But once those projects are completed, they're estimating about 1,300 workers to come in and run those facilities. And I think what's great about the 1,300 is that these are not PhD nuclear physicists. These are anywhere from a janitor to an administrative assistant. So this is a very diverse group of workforce that will be required, including PhDs. So I think it's a great opportunity. What's important to note about that is that I've been hearing from people, well, that's the nuclear projects, and INL is in Idaho Falls, and so that's all about what's happening in Idaho Falls. Let me tell you that with what's going on with these nuclear projects and the interest we're already receiving because of that, and because they're working on their supply chain, and there's other companies that are looking, knowing this is going to be an epicenter for energy here in eastern Idaho, they're starting to take shape and say, we've got to take a look at this region. And they're going to be looking at Pocatello. They're going to be looking at Malad, Idaho, Pocatello, Blackfoot, Shelley, Yukon, Rexburg, including Idaho Falls and Ammon. So they're not going to just specifically be looking at Idaho Falls. Conversations that are already taking place, phone calls that I've already been on, Pocatello is right there. So it's not just about Idaho Falls. So I want to express that, is that we've got a window of opportunity right now with what's happening with the nuclear. We've got a window of opportunity even with a bad thing called the pandemic. Sometimes bad things implement good things, and so we're seeing an uptick of companies looking at eastern Idaho that would have never considered eastern Idaho before, that want to bring their companies here and get out of these large populated areas. So with that, we've had 5 new prospects that have popped up between October 1 and November 10th. Just in the last 7 days, I've had 3. So we're seeing a lot of activity. There's a lot of things going on right now, and the conversations are going very well. So the current status of all of these prospects is it's still in process. There's still a lot of conversations that are going on. We continue to work with INL to help them build their supply chain, because again, the supply chain will support the efforts of the nuclear system, but there are also opportunities for other communities in the supply chain. We're also looking at interested companies that want to come in and be part of this whole nuclear consortium efforts, which would include looking at Pocatello and Blackfoot and other communities. So we continue to work in partnership with all of the EDs so that if we need to bring them to the table, if leadership needs to be brought to the table, again, we let these prospects guide when they want things opened up, who they want brought to the table. We're basically at their mercy because we want them to be here. So the Idaho Technology Council, I'll move on to that, publishes a report every year called the Knowledge Report. They started this in 2018. READY has developed the Knowledge Report for Regions 5 and 6, which the mayor has been on those calls, those meetings, as we've put together the information that's required. In 2018, it was really focused about the Knowledge Report, what's going on in Idaho. Last year, it was all about disruptions, because that's what was happening in our economy. This year, it's all about resilience and pivoting. Resilience to things like a pandemic, and how companies have had to pivot and restructure themselves in order to sustain and remain competitive and actually stay in business. So looking at the change in delivery systems and also the transformation. So 3 industries have been identified. So I just want to share with you the 3 industries identified for Region 5 were advanced manufacturing, which includes energy because of iNergy, information technology, cybersecurity because of FBI, and then agriculture. And we're focused on precision agriculture because of artificial intelligence that's now being implemented into farming. The farming that we've known of us out in the fields, picking up, pipelines and moving them is no longer happening. It's all computerized. There's computer systems that are actually looking at how much water goes into the soil, and whether it's, overwater or underwater. I mean, it's just the artificial intelligence of what's happening in agriculture is phenomenal. Region 6 is focused on energy, cybersecurity, cyber technology, and healthcare. So that's what's happening in that area. And what we've done is we did something different than what the other regions have done. And I'll be quite frank with you, I was really, really happy with the leadership that provided feedback. Our report was 14 pages long. The other regions, maybe 3. So what we got excited about is that we're showing the partnership between Region 5 and 6. So Idaho Technology Council asked us to write a conclusion to show the strength of what's happened with these 2 regions coming together, because they feel like we're a powerhouse of what we've been able to do over the last 12 months. And so it's focused on that conclusion of merging our assets, our resource, our strengths, and the full collaboration that's happening between leadership to make us a very competitive region. And so I'm excited when that report comes out. I'll shoot Brian an email so that he can pass the report out. It will be in a PDF format that you'll be able to read and see.
And do you have a estimated timeline, just so I can put it in my calendar?
So there is a meeting coming up. I think it's a virtual meeting that they're rolling out the report. I believe it's December 6th, but I'll get you the date. Okay. And you can actually attend that virtually. I'll be attending. Each one of the regional folks will be presenting their regional information. And so it will be about an hour and a half meeting, but I'll get that date and information to you so that you can get it on your calendar.
Is that one of the meetings that's open?
That's when they actually, it's a virtual open meeting, so okay. That's when they're going to roll the report out, and then from there you can download the report. We're also, as you know, we held the October 8th What's Up in Eastern Idaho conference. We were super excited. We had a goal of if we could get at least 75 attendees, we knew we hit the mark. We had 117 participate. So it was really exciting that we had exceeded what we had estimated. And this conference will be held every year in October. It will always be What's Up in Eastern Idaho, but the speakers and the subjects in which the speakers will speak on will be different based on what's going on in Eastern Idaho in the period of time that we're holding the conference. We're working with Idaho Workforce Development Council and the Idaho Department of Labor to do a virtual job fair. People still need to hire people, right? You can't have a ballroom with 100 people in it with over 100 employees that are trying to hire employees. And so I think this is and I wished I had my slides up here, but this is a great depiction of our environment right now. It is virtual. So we're looking at doing a virtual job fair. And then also from the economic development perspective, it's all about virtual business recruitment and economic development. That is exactly how things are occurring right now. These prospects that have come forward, this is what's taking place. So I think that's a good depiction. So we're Ready's thrilled to see what's been accomplished over the last 10 months in 2020. Even during a pandemic, we've worked hard to provide programs and resources to make Eastern Idaho's region stronger and frankly more competitive. I think our numbers and our results that are happening on our website are showing proof of that. We've also pushed forward new robust programs and initiatives in 2020. And we're extremely excited to be rolling out some new programs and initiatives for 2021, which will be held during our annual executive and advisory boards and meetings in December. Over the last 10 months, Ready's committed to development of a cohesive and growing region. We are, and we continue to work hard on behalf of our investors and our regional communities to change the way that we did business in the past. We've held meetings. Ready has held multiple charrettes. We've held events across the 14-county region. We've met with business, industry, university, government, and community leaders across our region, as well as across the state, because we want to see how we fit with other regions and what perceptions are of people across the state of Eastern Idaho. We've listened, we've responded, and we're moving action forward. Because again, Ready has been known as an organization that speaks a lot, but the action is not there. And I think over the last 10 months, we've proved that there is action and we mean business when it comes to economic development. The work that we've been doing since my arrival is built on a foundation of working together. And when you look at regions and states that are doing well, it's because leadership is collaborating and working together and not working against each other. So I really want to push United to drive economic growth in Eastern Idaho as our theme. It's important that we have, because of that, important to have a diverse set of voices working together. So everybody has their own perspective and ideas. And when you bring them together, I think it really strengthens the efforts in pursuit of common goals to better Eastern Idaho's future, to foster collaboration across jurisdictions and economic ecosystems, unite resources, reduce duplication of efforts, strengthen partnerships, and of course sell our region first. So our focus will always remain business retention and recruitment. So on the business retention side, we just don't want to forget about the businesses that have built our region and continue to build our region. So it's important that we do everything to retain those. As far as our focus on talent and workforce pipeline, we're driving leadership's effort to accelerate job growth and provide upskilling our community's workforce through education, training, development, and opportunities. One of the new programs that we'll be rolling out in 2021, which I can just give a little tip of what it is, we're actually working with one of our local organizations in which we will provide a program to help the underprivileged. On the business attraction, we're marketing our community and our region to every new prospect every single day. And on the strong entrepreneurship and innovation system focus, we've developed new programs and pulled organizations and leaders together to provide support, mentorship, facilities, and funding to support growth of entrepreneurship and startups in Eastern Idaho. And our focus, again, will remain on community outreach. We listen, we hear you, and we are working hard to make a difference. I gave you a copy of our scorecard. I think that shows our efforts. We've set objectives. We've set timelines. Again, you've seen the outline of what we're working on. We have internal scorecard that I continually tick and keep up to date. That is for me as the CEO of this organization. We want to make data-driven decisions. We don't make decisions just to make them. We want to make sure that they're data-driven, that it drives regional growth and our success. We're tracking our progress. We're measuring our outcomes. And of course, I talked to you about a report for 2020 that will be coming out in 2021. That is still going forward. Again, it's all about working together because the world of economic development has changed and it will continue to change. And I think today more than ever before, city and county business and industry and education leaders have to come together, work together, not only to prepare and to plan, but to collaborate and execute in order to compete. And with your investment, your support, and with your commitment to be a partner and work together, we can and we are building a competitive region. And we're seeing that over and over again. So sorry we don't have slides, but I want to thank you for your time and answer any questions that you may have.
Roger and Chris.
Teresa, when you look at the 14 counties you represent, you're going to have to be observing what is attractive to some and what are impediments to others. In your experience, what might be impeding us as Pocatello or as Bannock County in terms of being as attractive as somewhere else?
Sure. So when site selectors and companies come in, they do a community comparison, and we're seeing that. It's normally 3 to 5 communities that are being compared against each other. It's really been focused on 3, but we have seen others that have focused on 5, okay? And so when it comes to comparison, they're looking at, I could be the best economic development director, or you could have other EDs that are strong economic development directors. We recruit the company in, but that's where that transition starts to happen because the company then looks, I want to come into Pocatello. What is the structure? Is there red tape? What is the time to get my project in the ground? What are my costs? So they're going to run costs of everything it costs them, from fees, permitting, fees to hook into the system, the utility system of the city. All those things are considered in their spreadsheets of what the costs in. And as we all know in business, it's all about the bottom line, right? So if my bottom line comes out better for me to be in Blackfoot, that's where that company's going to go. Even though, whether it's Bannock Development or Ready or any other ED, we're pushing Pocatello. At the end of the day, if that bottom line puts them more positioned strength-wise, financial-wise, to be in Idaho Falls or Blackfoot or Rexburg, that's where they're going to go at the end of the day. So I think that from that experience, if every city could just sit down with all their department heads and make sure if there's areas we can streamline and cut the red tape on, let's do it. If we can put an efficient system together if we can sustain our costs to make it so that we are competitive and we're attractive, that's what's going to happen. Again, as an economic development director, we can only go so far with these things, but at the end of the day, it's the communities that will control whether that company is going to come in or not.
So do you have examples of like red tape in Pocatello that's been an issue that we could be aware of?
One thing that has come up consistently has been costs to come in. So the bottom line, so they've not got into detail about the spreadsheet. They don't show that with us. But costs have been a factor. The second thing that's been a factor, especially with the one company that we're talking to right now, they're actually moving their entire operation here. So that means they're picking up their employees and moving here. They said, we just don't know what's going on with your property taxes. We've got people that are looking at homes right now, and when they look at the cost comparison of what they're paying in California, so now you know where the state that this company's coming from, and what the property taxes are, it's a concern for our employees, and we think we're not going to be able to move some of our employees, which right now we have employees that have worked for a substantial number of years that are, very supportive of our company, and we don't want to lose those employees. But based on their costs, at the end of the day, they're not sure they could justify a cost of living. So again, these are things that have been communicated to us. If a prospect or a company makes a decision to not locate in our region or not locate in our state, we always follow up with that company and say, first of all, we sincerely appreciate you looking at our region. Second of all, can you just help us understand what was it specifically that made the decision for you to go to Utah or to another region in Idaho? So we like to get that feedback, because the only way we're going to be able to make change and improvements to our system is to get the feedback from our customers, which are these instances, companies and site selectors.
Do you do the same thing if a company?
She was talking about,
She-
sorry,
let's
when
get
you
some
said they were
clarification.
talking about costs, what costs are you talking about? Like permit costs in the city, or are you talking about the cost of purchasing
At the end of the
land or
day, it's
building?
what is it going to cost for me to bring my business there, whether it's the development and sustaining my business there. It's the bottom line that they look at.
But, so you don't know. if
Whiting
that's
tells those numbers,
relating
they
from
won't
the city or
share
if
that
it's
with us,
private?
no.
Okay.
But we're saying, what we're telling communities is that if you have not looked at your systems, your efficiency of your systems, whether it's engineering, permitting, zoning, whatever it may be, if it's been a while, it might be time to sit down and really evaluate and say, hey, let's meet with all of our department heads. Let's see areas that maybe we can tighten our belts and be more efficient in. So,
Sorry,
Sure thing.
Chris, I wasn't trying to jump in.
No,
I just
no,
wanted to
no,
clarify.
I'm sorry.
Chris?
So when you debrief, I'm assuming that I'm not assuming. Do you, if a company chooses Blackfoot or Rexburg or Idaho Falls rather than Pocatello, are they willing to debrief with you at that point about what, not maybe the specifics as you've said, but kind of generally what tipped them that way versus our way?
yeah, some are and some are not.
Okay. And so costs have come up. And I think I heard you say that specifically our tax rate, do you know if that is commercial tax rate, residential, both?
So what we've heard is the tax rate to do business here in this area, but it's also the property taxes of them moving employees. That's been a big, that's probably what we've been hearing more of, is that we want to bring our whole operation to Pocatello, but Bandit County has extremely high property taxes. And of course, as we know, the more businesses we bring in, the more it reduces kind of that pressure that we put on the backs of the residents to pay higher taxes, because we need more business to kind of help, even that out a little better. But yeah, I think the other thing that we heard was that there was a company that was looking at Pocatello and Idaho Falls, and they ended up are going to Idaho Falls, and one of the things that they said is that they have they called it self-sufficient, is what they called it, is because of their fiber optics that's owned by the city and their utilities that are ran by the city. So there's a controlling costs that are a reduction, especially when it comes to power costs. So that was a feedback that we got from one particular company.
So Teresa, clarify to me, Idaho Falls does not own the fiber. They do not own fiber, so if they went to Idaho Falls for fiber, it wasn't because
Ammon does.
they owned fiber. Ammon is the one that sets up fiber, but they're a higher, well, I don't know what their electric looks like with Rocky Mountain Power, because that would be Ammon. Idaho Power has a power company, so that they're both separate, so what did they go for? Where were they
So
at?
all I can do is just reciprocate to you what has been given to me. That's all I can do, is just tell you what has been told to us. And that is what they said. So,
And you.
so I, again, I don't control what they say to me. I'm sorry. I'm just the messenger.
No, I don't want to shoot the messenger, but
Yeah.
so just some clarification. Because both Rocky Mountain and Idaho Power are quite a bit more expensive than Idaho Power is. What's that?
Idaho Falls Power.
Idaho Falls Power and Rocky Mountain Power both are quite a bit more expensive than Idaho Power is, and then Ammon does own the rights
Their
to
optics.
the fiber, and Idaho Falls does not. Now I think they may be looking at how they would do something there, but that's an interesting statement that they would make. So
Yeah, and I don't know if they just got confused when they said that, because they had also looked at Ammon and got the ownership of fiber mixed up, but that's just basically what we
Yeah.
were told. So again, I just want you to know we're following up with them, because the only way we're going to know what we need to change and work on is to get that feedback. Now, some will give you feedback, some will not give you feedback.
Yeah.
But when they do, man, we'll take it.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that, we can get that
It all
information
helps.
back.
Chris, you have another question?
Yeah, so how would Pocatello, a city, go about really doing an unbiased, authentic, thorough study of its strengths and weaknesses? And that's, to give you a little context, I think it was maybe 2 years ago now. I think it was CCOG did an economic development, I don't know, seminar, let's say. And there was an organization that functions in the Intermountain West, has done a ton of work in Utah with several communities. And they, part of what they do for a less than commercial rate, if my memory serves, is essentially help communities figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, so that they have some kind of way to begin to look at themselves from an economic development perspective. So anyway, so that's been rolling around in my head for quite a while, because it appears to me that regardless of what we think, it's basically the proof is in the pudding. Are the customers showing up and building? And they're not. And so if a city finds itself in that position, what should it do, and how does one go about doing whatever it is one should do?
Leadership puts themselves in the driver's seat of the company, the interested company and prospect, site selector. Says, all right, let's pretend we're a business that's wanting to come into our own community. Now let's do a cost comparison of how we fend against all of the other communities in our region that we're competing against. And that's where you start to identify areas in which need some attention or some changes, or maybe these are areas that you can't even control. But again, putting yourself in the driver's seat of those businesses.
Are there any tools out there to help cities do that? I mean, templates of questions or that help cities delineate how to go about that process in an organized way? If
No, but there are
that's-
some rough worksheets out there, excuse me, that site selectors use.
Rick?
Teresa, we've heard rumors of numerous jurisdictions that have chosen not to continue to fund Ready. What's the economic viability of your organization?
So, first of all, the rumor is untrue.
Okay.
In fact, we've got back the master agreements. We had heard the rumor mill too, which we thought was quite fascinating. I'm not sure where it started. We heard the rumor mill that Idaho Falls was upset with this and Blackfoot was upset with this, so they were pulling out. They are on board, fully involved, and fully involved and supportive of Ready's efforts. I've met with both mayors, and they're just excited to see what's happened to Ready over the last 15 months, particularly the last 12 months of what's been going on. So we have not seen any reductions. We have seen a lot of compliments, and in particular after our annual summit that we just had, and the strength of what that summit and the speakers and the topics that they spoke on, they just said they felt like we really are leading the pack from a regional perspective. So I think the return on investment is for you, of course it all is on ROI, right? What is the return on investment is that we're working hard every single day to promote our region, to promote every single community within our region. And I think our website is showing that. I think that the response that we're getting back from companies, I believe over the next 12 months we're really going to see an uptick of activities. And I would love for quite a few of those companies to come to Pocatello. But again, we can only do our job to a certain point, and then it's up to the municipality to determine whether they're competitive enough to allow that company interest to come in. And I think that's where it's probably the most, I love my job, but the most frustrating part of the job is that you work your butt off 24/7, and it gets to that pivotal point where it comes down to costs. And a community that you thought would have been first in place isn't. That's frustrating.
Chris?
So it's like falling off the cliff's edge, you know?
Well, it's like being a teacher. You
Yeah.
teach the best lesson on the planet, and if the kids don't get it,
Yeah.
it didn't work.
Well, and it's like those dreams you have where you fall off the cliff, but you wake up where you hit the bottom. In this sense, you do hit the bottom.
Yeah. So you mentioned that to date, the folks that are relocating and buying residential property have had no trouble finding housing. Now, what we hear repeatedly here in Pocatello is that we have this vast housing shortage. So that leads me to wonder and assume, at least initially, that these folks must be buying residential property not in Pocatello. Because what I'm hearing is that there isn't, we don't have the housing stock of the correct price and type. Am I off base on that?
No, in fact, our last ED meeting, I will tell you, Blackfoot's exploding right now. Bingham County, I think they had 24 different projects on the docket. And Blackfoot City, again, I'll get the numbers and I can forward them to you based on the output, or the information that was given to us at our last ED meeting. But, you know, Blackfoot feels like they're kind of sitting in the middle between Pocatello and Idaho Falls, and they're kind of prime. So they're priming the pump, so to speak, preparing for what's to come with these nuclear projects. And so they've seen a huge uptick in building permits in that area. We formed a housing committee. So in the nuclear consortium, there's 4 committees, subcommittees we formed. One's on infrastructure, one's on housing, one's on workforce, and one's on training. And we pulled the housing subcommittee together, and we put a spreadsheet together because we wanted to know what our current housing inventory is. What is the inventory of projects that have been approved through the city that will be built? What are projects sitting out there that the city is aware of that haven't been approved yet? Those plans have not been brought before the city. So, I mean, we're digging as deep as we can. or rumor mills of developers that are looking at properties to develop for housing. How big is the acreage? How many houses can go in there? Are they single family? Are they duplexes? What type of housing are they? We're looking at apartments, condos, townhouses, even RV trailer parks to say, even in our RV trailer parks, we know there's going to be man camps. We're not calling it man camps. It's called Nuclear Housing Support Program, okay? Because that's such a bad connotation when you talk about man camps. Bingham County and Butte County have come forward that will allow those developments to come into their community. So, I mean, we're digging deep. And even on the RV parks, are they paying by night? Are they paying by month? Do they have to pay extra for services? I mean, we have dug. This spreadsheet is pretty compelling. And the information that we've received back through the realtor associations in Pocatello, Blackfoot, and Idaho Falls, there are pages of housing projects in Idaho Falls. They're already prepping for what's coming. They're already planning for what's coming. And so I would say to a community, if you're not doing that, you need to be doing that.
Well, that was going to be my next question is, and do we have, to your knowledge, do we have Pocatello-based developers who have shifted some of their business because to Blackfoot and Idaho Falls because those community, or are you aware?
That wasn't identified, not in the information that we received, because we didn't ask for that information. I mean, that would be good to know. Are they shifting that? But if there's not that development and housing going on in your community, why not? Is it because the developers are not there, the investment, the dollars are not there to make that investment, or is it because they're ready to make the investment, but the system is too tight for them to be able to work quickly to get those houses in the ground?
Right.
So again, taking an inventory.
Linda?
Thank you. I'm just curious about Blackfoot. I mean, I go to Blackfoot fairly regularly, and I don't see a whole lot of housing being built in Blackfoot. Is it?
Yeah, if you enter from the south and you see that subdivision right off I-15, that's a good example of just one of many housing projects that are going in right now. So yes.
But I mean, how much are they building? I mean, a lot more than we are, or?
Based on the number that are actually in the process of approval? Yeah, so again, I can get you those numbers that were reported.
That'd be great.
So Tiffany Olson is the Bingham County person that is on the ED, and also Kurt Hibbert. And so I can actually, what was relayed in the minutes from last month's meeting, I can give those numbers to Brian, and then he can just, or I can just email them to all of you, so that you all, make sure you all get
Just
them.
email it to all of us. if you
Okay.
don't mind. And then,
Certainly do that.
Thank you.
and so then I'm curious because you talked about shovel ready. A while ago, the mayor let us know that Northgate is not performing as one would have hoped. A lot of what seems to be going in out there, I think there are a couple of gas stations, and then there are sort of expansions of more or less local. I mean, Bingham, Portneuf, those kinds of things. I think there's a retirement center, something like that. But I'm just curious because I would have thought that would be a shovel-ready area, which initially was supposed to include IT and light manufacturing, which are two of the focus areas that you mentioned.
Yep.
And yet, for whatever reason, Northgate seems to be being bypassed, and I'm wondering. My impression is that there's some tension among various developers that collectively form that whole developing area. But I'm just curious why Northgate is not apparently attractive to the very types of folks who appear, and residential too. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
confused.
And that's an area that we're actually pushing hard. And the reason why, I think it needs to be pushed hard is because Pocatello is in such a prime position. And I'm going to speak personally. So is Teresa McKnight not as ready on this? Spending 30 years creating innovation districts, you have got a prime pump right now for an innovation district in Pocatello. You guys are so well positioned that I think sometimes I wonder if we truly understand how primed you are right now for an innovation district. What needs to happen is that strong leadership needs to be pulled together. And there needs to be conversations that take place in regards to what is the next stage and phase of Northgate. So if those that originally started Northgate are no longer together and that vision has gone away with them, then leadership needs to regroup and restate and to push it forward. And I think there are multiple opportunities because, and I just had this conversation the other day, so I want you to know I'm promoting Northgate as much as I can. You've got a research university. You've got one of the largest student and research-based universities here in Idaho State University. Yes, Boise is the biggest, but Idaho State is the second, to be quite honest with you. They're really increasing their research, and the healthcare side of what's going on between ISU and Portneuf Medical Center. I think that Pocatello has an open opportunity for the biotech medical sector to be an anchor, a high-tech sector that you could play on very well. But if people don't get around the table and talk about it, nothing happens.
So then this is a question coming from my ignorance. I mean, since that's it's a TIP district, obviously, so there's city
Which complicates it
involvement
even more, right?
in that regard, but it's really about private development. And so obviously I would assume that the city would want to and would be to our advantage to be involved in whatever this leadership might be.
Absolutely.
But I'm not sure that it is the most effective or efficient way to proceed to try to have government lead the charge. I mean, it seems to me that it ought to be the private sector that is leading its own charge. But being concerned about economic development, good paying jobs, our residential tax rates, some of which have gone up 100% in 4 years in some areas of town. How, in your experience, could council facilitate pulling together the kind of public-private partnership, because Northgate is already essentially a public-private partnership, given that it's a TIF. What is the appropriate role for a city based on your experience? Where other cities have done this, how have they proceeded? Just any wisdom that you can, that you can share. And
Sure.
I think it would be appropriate for council to be involved in the sense that we are the guardians of the people's money.
Right, that TIF district.
We represent collectively a broad spectrum of the community, all of us having different constituents. So what can we do to try to get Pocatello a bit more off the blocks, specifically relative to Northgate, but in general?
So I think that the first place I would start is, again, by bringing leadership together, and that is something either ready or ready in partnership with Bannock Development, because I know the city of Pocatello has been very strong voiced in support of Bannock Development, and we are in full partnership with Bannock Development. There's no contention between our organizations. If there is, we're not aware of it, but we think we've been meshed and work well together. That it basically, whether it's Ready taking the lead or Ready and Bannock Development in partnership taking the lead to pull people around the table to start discussions, we're happy to do that. That's why we're here. And again, I think with my experience of developing innovation districts, my experience in working with a lot of developers across the United States, I think that again, you're in a prime position to do something really cool with Northgate. And when I have to go to Idaho Falls, I drive that direction to hit the interstate. And it kills me to see that open land not being developed. Because again, there's just so much potential there. I will say another thing, again, this is from the visual, I'm speaking from a site selector's perspective. Okay, so I don't want any misconceptions, I don't want any ill feelings towards this comment at all. But if I'm coming from the north to the south, coming into Pocatello, and I decide to exit the interstate at Northgate and see, what is this Northgate? What's it all about? So I'm a site selector. And I come to the stoplight. I look to the right, and what do I see? Cut down weeds. Okay, so again, I'm just going to lay it out there. Because again, I'm looking from the eyes of the site selector, and then I look to the right, and I see a very well landscaped, developed. I'm going to pull to the right and look and just investigate what's going on there. What makes the right side different than the left side? I don't know. So visually, I've got to see. It's all about first impressions. And so as communities, you've got to remember that we're here every single day and we see stuff every single day, and it's a norm to us. It's like when I was a cost accountant at Pepperidge Farm, and we'd have our corporate visitors from Norwalk, Connecticut come and visit our plant there in Richmond, Utah. And they'd say, oh my gosh, they'd sit in the cafeteria, your mountains are beautiful. Oh, I guess they are beautiful. You know, you see them every day and you get used to them, so it's the norm. I think that, you know, when we look at this area, we have to really pinpoint and say, if I'm coming into Pocatello for the very first time and I'm trying to make the best first impression, what does that entail? It's signage, it's wayfinding, it's beautiful landscaped areas when I come off the interstate. All those pieces promote your area, your community, and give you that first impression that people now want to dig and learn a little more. And I think in some areas of our region, we're missing the boat on that.
Which kind of ties into the whole beautification and that ties in with the whole CDBG conversation, which I was kind of wondering about anyway, because we had talked about being able to use CDBG funds if council so chose to work on, I think we were talking about, I can't remember exactly where we were talking.
Clark and Center Street was it?
Clark and Center Street. So I'm wondering if maybe what we're hearing today in this larger context doesn't really bump up the importance of following up with both the beautification project that you guys started before I arrived, and then also the CDBG, if that doesn't kind of become, because I noticed that they're meeting to talk about something about using their funds, and maybe we need to get in there before they've reached their conclusions, because that wouldn't be good to preempt their decision making. So would that be possible?
So have you looked at the agenda, number 6?
Well, I have, but
Community Development Block Grants Policy and Procedure Manual. We'll be
Okay.
talking about that today.
okay. So, but I mean, I read that as their manual, and so, but we can actually talk about this other during that conversation.
Well, it's CDBG funded sidewalk program. That's exactly what the council
Okay,
asked them to
perfect.
talk about.
All right,
so.
perfect. Okay, great.
So I think that I think we're in good shape. Teresa, thank you very much. Thank you
You bet.
for
I just want to
spending an hour
confirm,
and
I've got 2
20
action
minutes with
items,
us.
so make sure I don't walk away and leave something out that I should have given to all of you. But I have the SBIRS TTR program information that you want on, and then also the numbers for Blackfoot housing,
Yes,
which includes Bingham County. Those are my 2 action items.
that's right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank you. Before we move to agenda item 4, we're going to take a break for a few minutes, and we will be started back. Let's try to be back here by 10 minutes to. Joining us after the break, we appreciate that. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, which is Fire Union Quarterly Update. Members of the Pocatello Fire Union will give council an update on activities for the past quarter. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Andy Moldenhauer, President of Pocatello Firefighters Local 187, and this is
Adam Davis, Vice President, Local 187.
So anyway, a lot of what we've been doing over the last little bit has just been centered around our response with COVID. Obviously, it's a pretty big dictator in how we go about business, and it impacts everything. You know, we end up even not going on medical calls when we're going on fire calls where they're like an alarm activation or something like that. Then we started wearing masks on those calls just because of the risk of exposure. I do want to thank the mayor for being proactive with protective equipment and with policies to try to protect city employees and allowing us the flexibility to be able to tailor our response and what we're doing to fit the need. Otherwise, moving on, you know, last time we were here, we talked about our Breast Cancer Awareness Month was coming up, and we were doing pink t-shirts, and there were a few council members that bought shirts and masks from us. Unfortunately, just because of the way that things worked out with Break for Breakfast being so tentative, we kind of limited the number of number of shirts that we bought, and so even though they did hold Break for Breakfast, we didn't participate. And also another way that we've sold a lot of those shirts in the past is through the gift shop at the hospital, and where the hospital hasn't been allowing visitors, the gift shop has not been open, so our numbers are way down. At this point, we're looking at barely breaking even on the shirt sales and stuff like that, which will severely limit the amount of money that we're able to donate to the cancer center. With that in mind, we've got Operation Warm coming up, which is the coats for kids. We will be giving out some coats, but there again, we rely heavily on business donations to be able to purchase coats. And in the past, we've usually raised about $10,000 for purchasing coats. This year, we've only been able to raise about $3,000. So we're going to be able to provide less coats than we have in the past. And rather than have a large event passing those coats out, I think what we're going to do this year is just supply the coats to school and let them do that and distribute them, because it just isn't responsible to have a meeting and pass out coats and stuff like that in the current climate. Similar.
Andy, when do you plan on doing that?
You know, I talked with the guy who's our director of that, or who's in charge of that, and he's kind of working on some last minute donations. Typically we go through Operation Warm themselves to purchase the coats. And one of the issues that we have with that is that we buy the coats by the box. And so and it's okay to do that, but we end up with some surplus coats that way, and where we're limited on funds, that's just not an efficient way to do things. And so he's been working with an alternate supplier for coats, and he's currently on vacation, but I think when he gets back, he's gonna kind of finalize where we're at with numbers and how many coats we need. One of the things too is that in the past we've gotten lists of kids that needed coats, but we've also got lists of this kid probably needs a coat and this one might. And so with the limited dollars this year, we're strictly sticking to these are the kids that need a coat. And so that's made the assessing who we need to get coats for and what sizes we need to get, that's made that a lot more difficult. And so he was waiting for a little bit of communication back from the school district as far as identifying those children and then going from there. I think it'll probably happen fairly quick, but obviously with the weather outside, the coats are needed at this point. So we're hoping to get them distributed as soon as possible.
Super. Okay.
And Fill the Boot is also, we basically, because we didn't do a public event with that, It's been next to nothing on the return, which is usually money that we give to MDA. On a good note, the city's currently doing the United Way campaign, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but out of the total that the city raises for United Way, the fire department we raised about $11,000, and I think that the total for the city was about 19 last year. And so the fire department does carry, a fairly significant burden on bringing the money in for United Way, and that's going on, and I think that we're doing well there. And I would like to mention too that the fire union has a 501c3, and it is called PIFPAF. It's PFPAF, and the money, and we actually fund some of our charitable donations through our PIFPAF, which is collected through United Way. If people donate more than $150, they can designate where the donations go, and of course that's a great spot to go because we utilize that money well. We started into the holiday season, and we've made a $500 donation to Aid for Friends and Idaho Food Bank. Last year we were heavily involved in purchasing turkeys, which obviously that's starting to kick off right now. And as of right now, I mean, typically it works better for us to give money to the food bank because they're able to use cash for a larger purchasing power, and so that's why we chose to do the $500, and that's something that we typically do every year. Otherwise, we've got upcoming negotiations. Obviously, we'll be negotiating with you guys this year. We're looking forward to doing that and preparing and hopefully have a successful negotiation that works out for both sides. And I want to thank you guys for approving the MOU to help us staff with the Forest Service engine in the city of Pocatello. Really doing that and making ourselves available to the Forest Service kind of opened up the floodgates, and we've had several deployments where we've had members that have responded to fires regionally. And I don't have the exact numbers on that, but it was something that we feel strongly has brought in, or that I'm confident has brought in between $10,000 and $20,000 to the city for the utilization of the equipment, as well as the overtime dollars for our membership who went on it, and also those who were backfilling them. And I feel like both sides working together made that be a win-win. And we're going to work over the winter to try to finalize some stuff so that we're not doing that under an MOU, but we're actually working within our regular processes and rules. And there's a lot of potential for that to have an expanded role next summer. There's some other departments in the area that regularly deploy and get a fairly large return to their city for those deployments. So.
Well, that's such a win-win for both sides. I think the employees have an opportunity to make really good money, and the city gets a little bit of cash back. So it's a win-win. It'd be nice to be able to do it more than a couple weeks.
Yeah, and if we can hit the ground running next year, I mean, Adam knows the numbers a little bit better because he's on our wildland committee, but I mean, you want to speak about Idaho Falls?
Yeah, some of the neighboring cities, I think it's just a great potential. Idaho Falls has regularly, I think, 8 to 10 people out from April until November, and they brought in $3.5 million over 3 years. The city of Haley, a couple years ago, they only have one unit go out at a time, and they brought in $750,000 for their city. So there's a great opportunity there. It's something that could supplant that operation as well as supplement other areas. Just a good opportunity. We're working with our staff to try to work out the language. So.
Good. That's good. Chris.
I think in talking to the chief, it seemed to me that there are two kinds of situations, and I just want to be clear. One is some situations pay the folks who go on the fire from door to door, essentially, and some do not. Can you just straighten me out on?
So I think the chief overstepped slightly on that. Our contract says that we get portal to portal. And portal to portal means that when we go on a deployment, we are paid for the entire time that we're gone. And I don't think the chief agrees with that. And so I think he's trying to get a little bit of a stick in there to try to remove that language from our contract. Certainly in negotiations, that's something that we can discuss. But we feel like when people are gone away from their home, they should be compensated for the time that they're away.
And that's included in what because are these, does all of this operate within the GIF?
No, so GIF is separate.
Okay.
GIF is an agreement that is amongst all the neighboring fire departments within the Pocatello Valley.
Right.
And so if there is a fire that's declared a GIF fire, then they get resources from all of the neighboring fire departments for 24 hours without any cost. And then if the fire is ongoing, then they may request and they may have to pay for those engines. Like if there was a fire in Ingham, and we went down there, we would supply an engine for 24 hours. However, if the fire was ongoing and it took a week and they wanted one of our engines, they may have to reimburse us for that. But that's above my pay grade.
Okay.
But the reality of the deployments that we're talking about, those are generally worked out through IDL. And so IDL will say, hey, we have a request to send 20 engines to California. And so at that point in time, then we would get the request to be able to supply an engine. Typically, departments across the region would partner together, and so there may be an engine from Idaho Falls and an engine from Pocatello and an engine from Blackfoot. And all of those engines would respond to a fire, whether it's in the state of Idaho or whether it's in California or Colorado, just wherever the need is. And all of that's processed through IDL.
Okay.
And that's what we're dealing with.
And they pay portal to portal.
They do pay portal to portal. Not only do they pay the cost of the people who go on the response, they pay a stipend for the utilization of the equipment, and they also pay for backfill, because if I'm in California fighting a fire, somebody is going to have to cover my shifts.
Right.
And so, so all of those items are covered in portal to portal, but they're also in our agreement with Idaho Department of Lands.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Just want to thank you for all you guys do.
Oh, and I do want to mention, like I said, we're a little bit extended on our cancer shirts. If anybody would like to have one of our pink shirts, they have them at Station 1. We also have masks like the one I'm wearing. And we're just trying to, obviously we don't want to have a surplus going forward, and we'd like to get them all sold so that we can make a better donation to the Portland Cancer Center.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item 5 is zoning ordinance modifications. Planning and Development Services staff will present proposed revisions to the zoning ordinance municipal code title 17.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Carl Anderson. I'm with the City of Pocatello Planning Department, for the record. So the proposals you have before you are a result of working within the code and identifying errors, inconsistencies, or adapting to changing situations. Staff is seeking council's direction to proceed with the proposed revisions and prepare a draft ordinance for council to consider. So I'll briefly just provide a quick summary on what some of these changes are. These amendments include, beginning with Title 17, 01150, our definitions. Add a definition for front, rear, and side yard setbacks. We currently do not have a definition for determining the differences between side, front, or rear. This is intended to improve the consistency of administering our setback requirements. Additionally, correct a citation under the definition of adjoin or adjoining. this is a vestigial remnant from our last modification that we did. There's a few things that snuck by us, so this is to fix that. Included a definition for short-term rental housing. We get a lot of questions on short-term rentals. We currently do not have a definition nor a place for that within our code. So this is to define that, and I'll get to how we'll be regulating that in our use table. Clarify the definition of street so as not to extend to include an alleyway. That's something that we've had certain developers try to push to allow the alleyway to be the street. That'll impact how we interpret our standards in our original town set area.
Carl, do all those affect only residential areas?
No, they'll impact do you mean the definition of street versus alley?
Well,
Or
particularly
these changes?
All
the
these
setback.
definitions.
I mean, is this area just 1701-150? Does it address residences, commercial, industrial?
It addresses all of our development.
Okay.
Yes. 1702 are land use decisions included. So this is to clarify that a comprehensive plan amendment may occur once every 6 months on a given parcel. So as it's currently written, it states that a comprehensive plan amendment may only occur once every 6 months anywhere within the city. So that means that what happens on one end of town if somebody's requesting a rezone or if annexation occurs and the comprehensive plan is amended, then on the other end of town, we could not amend the comp plan for 6 months, possibly delaying another individual's application. So this is to change that to allow for some more flexibility.
What are you changing it to? Are you specifying a time or?
It's still within 6 months, but we're adding the language that it shall not occur more than 6 months on a specific parcel.
Parcel, okay, thank you.
But otherwise, because it might be that could tie into the economic development conversation that we had, because we would want to be able, I would think, to move flexibly
Right.
if it's appropriate. So the change would allow that?
It would allow us to be more flexible in different areas of our comp plan. Our comp plan should be a little bit more of a living document in some
Right.
regards to adapt to changing situations.
So how would you deal with a situation where something happened over here and was dealt with, and then an opportunity cropped up over here the next week? Under the new plan,
It would allow us to process that.
okay,
Under our current, we would have to wait 6 months.
6 months, right,
So
right.
this
But
is
way-
cutting red tape.
Basically.
Great.
Woohoo.
So 1703 are zoning districts. We are proposing to clarify note number 7, which would allow for storefront commercial. So we currently allow for ground level commercial with residential above in our commercial general zoning district. What this will do is allow us to align with the purpose of our commercial general zoning district to allow for storefront commercial uses. Sorry if I'm speaking quietly. Basically, this allows for, as long as the storefront remains commercial, they may put a residential use on the ground level. That allows for some more flexibility to maintain that storefront commercial uses, but it also allows for flexibility to meet building requirements for ADA. So providing that accessibility by having a ground level unit rather than providing an elevator or means. So number 4 here. So this is a minor amendment to our development standards. One is to, let me go back, I apologize. We're adding a note under our use table for short-term rental. This would be note number 30. We've got quite a few notes there. But this would basically look at how we'd be regulating those short-term rentals. In essence, they'd be permitted anywhere that a residential use is permitted, provided that they're meeting their performance standards.
Is that for Airbnbs?
Yes, that's correct. So yeah, for example, if a single-family home is permitted, then you may use that single-family home for an Airbnb, provided that you're parking it, you're meeting all the standards, and you're not having more than one guest there. So it's not a loophole to work around and have a duplex or anything like that. But if you do have a duplex and you're meeting the performance standards, then you can use that for an Airbnb also.
Does this run the risk of, because I know in some neighborhoods, the boarding house ordinance is an issue because I think it's supposed to be for unrelated and it multiplies. Is opening up the possibility that a residence in a neighborhood could be rented to whomever for 3 weeks? Are we creating a potential for encouraging more rundown residences in our neighborhoods?
So
Short-term renters aren't going to, if they're Airbnb, that's one thing.
Yeah.
If they're short-term renters and I'm renting for 6 weeks and then I'm out of here,
yeah, so the way our code currently operates with short-term rentals is we don't have any regulations for something like Airbnb. So when somebody calls our department and asks if they can utilize their property for an Airbnb, we defer to state code, which basically states that they shall not be excluded from residential zoning districts. In summary, we're trying to allow that where, as long as you're meeting your performance standards, you can utilize that. Utilize it as an Airbnb standard. During our last revision, we removed the regulation or definition for residential rental dwelling, basically because our department is not in the business of, you must live here or you may rent it. As long as you meet your performance standards, it's permitted. I don't see it as a workaround to boarding houses. Boarding houses, those are kind of a separate animal.
well, no, I know they are, but it takes a minimum of, months
Yeah.
to deal effectively with these aberrant residences. And I'm just wondering if there isn't a way to separate the concept of 52 one-week rentals versus Airbnb. Because, we already have, from some residents' perspective, we already have issues around enforcing the ordinances that we have quickly and effectively.
Sure.
And I would really be, there's got to be a way to create language that differentiates, doesn't it? Doesn't that seem possible?
It's certainly something we could pursue when we bring the ordinance forward.
Because I'm just really concerned because we have a number of neighborhoods that, older neighborhoods that are kind of on that tipping point. And the more non-residents, non-residing landlords we have, and the less investment skin in the game that the residents have in rentals, the less frequently, the less well they're upkept. And I just don't want to do anything that inadvertently jeopardizes our neighborhoods at all.
Understood. So, and again, that's something that we could certainly look at. Just so I'm clear, is it the use of a rental in general? Does the time frame kind of factor into what you're saying?
Well, I think so, because as I say, if I know that I'm going to be renting a house for 6 or 8 weeks, it basically, before I'm gone, before, the wheels, before people realize that there's a problem, and then certainly before our enforcement wheels really kick in, based on at least my current experience, the people are come and gone, the property is diminished, the neighborhood is therefore diminished, people's property values, et cetera, et cetera. That's my concern.
That's certainly something we can explore. I'll come prepared to discuss that in further detail.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
So we have a question from Linda, but I'm kind of a clarity. So are you experiencing landlords that will rent for a week or 2 weeks at a time?
No, but I'm just saying that shorter term tenants may feel less vulnerable to ordinance enforcement and less obligated to try to keep the property up. And I don't want to, first of all, I don't want landlords to have to deal with that. But secondly, I don't want neighborhoods to have to try to deal with that.
Okay.
It just concerns me a little bit that I don't even know how to say this, but I don't want to get into like discriminating against certain groups of people that need a certain type of housing. So I'd be very careful with how we approach that situation. But my question is something totally different, related to Airbnbs. I've actually seen on Airbnb people who use RVs, like parked RVs as an Airbnb. How do we address that? Do we allow it, and
So-
what's our requirements there?
Yeah, so right now, this note really is specific to things like Airbnbs. And part of coming, when we prepare the ordinances to discuss the fair housing implications, I think of that too. As I mentioned, we removed the definition for residential rental dwelling, which is a different animal than a short-term rental. If we have a code enforcement on a situation like that, we would be pursuing the property owner. That would be the same if it was an Airbnb or a rental dwelling. If we're having issues there, they're pretty, they're stagnant. And if we've had issues that occur 4 weeks and then leave, we still have that code enforcement with them until.
Especially if they're out of town landlords, it gets sticky, as we know.
Sure, but we do chase situations like that. But there are some other implications that we'll look at. But this really is just looking at Airbnbs is what this is intended to do. So the
Carl,
note here,
what's the definition of short term?
the definition that we are proposing is the rental of all or a part of a residential dwelling unit for a duration of occupancy less than 30 days. So the note that we're adding here, so basically they're allowed in all residential zones where residential uses are allowed, or excuse me, in all zones where residential uses are allowed. No short-term rental shall be located within an accessory structure where the accessory structure has not been specifically designed for human habitation. No short-term rental may be located within a recreational vehicle except where located in an approved RV park. So I think that gets to your question about RVs. It's in Title 7 or in Title 10, not set of our zoning orders, but there is also a limit on the number of days that somebody may stay in an RV within city limits. I believe it's 14 days in a given year. So they can't just stay in there 13 days, move out, and then move back in.
But somebody else can.
Are we?
It can't be used for habitation. I can double check that section of code. It's not something that I enforce on a daily basis.
And I see places where, and I don't know that these are Airbnb. I mean, I've seen RVs listed on Airbnb, but I've also seen RVs parked around town where people are clearly living in them. And maybe with the COVID situation, that's forced situations where people can't be in a house, and so they're in the RV. So I realize maybe we're easing up a little on enforcement during the current situation, but is that something that we, and you're not code enforcement, but are we
I think that if there's somebody,
dealing with that?
if there's somebody that is living in an RV longer than the 14 days, and that can be verified, people need to inform us, let us know that that's happening, and code enforcement will then take the steps to do what we need to do. With that.
Okay.
Because there's a place that you can live in an RV, which is RV parks that are, I mean, I can think of a number of them, that have actual RVs, but that's their permanent residence.
Yeah.
And then there's a
But
place.
not
that
on
you
a
can't-
street in
not on
front of a house.
street or in the backyard of a house
Yeah.
or on the side of a house.
Or a
something
driveway
like
or
that.
whatever, yeah.
And so I think that if there's somebody that has that, that's not necessarily what
Right.
Carl deals with every day, but that would be a code enforcement issue that code enforcement would get a hold of Carl and say, what does it say here? And Carl would tell him, and then they would go and enforce it.
And that's correct, Mr. Mayor. And what this does is add that additional language there that if they're doing that, which is potentially hard to get an issue, they may not also use it as an Airbnb.
Okay.
It's the same.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, we currently regulate how many people can live in a boarding house, and I don't think that's, I mean, that's discriminating. If that is discriminating, it's discriminating against people who could live cheaper in that house if there were 8 people. And I don't think we'd be in a position of risking being discriminatory by regulating the number of days a person can stay if that's what they agree to. I am really concerned about, especially with 1 to 30 days. I mean, golly, especially, you know, in light of our economic development talk, I think we need to think of our neighborhoods as one of our potential charm factors. Because when people come and look at our community, I think they want to see a community that doesn't gentrify and make it impossible for lower income folks to live reasonably. But I do believe that they look at a community as a whole and say, does this community, are they aware that once I'm here, the charm factor kicks in? And I'm also concerned about people whose homes are part of their retirement plan. And if their property values are diminished because we've allowed, we've allowed rental property, or anyway, short-term rentals, and some of those are diminishing those people's property values, I'm concerned about that because we're harming our own residents. So I just want to, I mean, I've made my point and I'll be quiet now, but I just have some real reservations on those 2 levels.
So Heidi, we have a...
Well, I was just going to say thank you for expressing your, concerns on that. One thing that might, I guess, just something to consider is that usually people are using Airbnbs as like an alternative to a hotel stay.
Oh,
So
Airbnb I'm not concerned about. I'm just concerned about if it's so open-ended that you can rent for 2 days and there are no, to your point about somebody going in and, trashing it and devaluing the property, I think, in an Airbnb situation, the person who's wanting to utilize that as an Airbnb they're not going to rent it to somebody else if it's run down and terrible. So that's going to, affect their business plan to a certain extent. But I'm not aware of a lot of people that rent to somebody for like 2 days, let them trash it. No, I just don't want this to open up that possibility. That's what I'm concerned about. That I don't have an issue with Airbnb. I'm not concerned about Airbnbs for all the reasons that you're pointing out. I just don't want to open the possibility for some other aberrant critter to arise.
Yeah, Councilmember Stevens, thank you for those comments. I will dive into them and come prepared to talk to them.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I guess my comment wasn't really about the length of time of rental, but just that we're careful that we provide all, or not provide, but allow for all different types of housing that people need. And, not everybody can be an owner or even commit to a long-term rental depending on what their situation is, and that we don't, put some undue burden on a particular group of people by having restrictions that mean that then they can't find the housing they need. That's what I'm talking about with concerns. I guess, discrimination wasn't the right word, but just making sure that we allow for all the different types of housing that people would need.
Sure. Okay.
I have one more related question based on that, on Linda's comment, and I'm not going to get the name of this organization right. What is the correct name of the organization that Sunny presented to us about?
Housing Alliance and Community Partnerships, HACP.
Thank you. Do they, just out of curiosity, do we know if they do short-term rentals, month to month, week to week?
I don't know of any organization or any landlord that does a week-to-week or
No.
bi-monthly rental. I've, in fact, never heard that in my lifetime.
I think right now with
So I
COVID,
don't think so.
the possibility that that's going on is pretty high. Because Aid for Friends can't have their facility, so they're doing temporary housing for people outside their facility. When we look at transitional housing, it can be anywhere from a week to, wait till they can get into a place. I don't know.
Right.
But I know that there's a wide range of possibilities dealing with people who are struggling with housing issues and transitioning to a more permanent housing.
So that might be just a piece, and I'm not trying to put work on your already stooping shoulders, believe me. But that might be a piece of this conversation too, in terms of, to address the concern that I just, when I hear 1 to 30 days rental versus a designated rental, type of rental, I just get concerned.
Absolutely, and I will dive into that a little further. And like I said, I'll come prepared to unpack that a little bit further. This definition did come from the city of Idaho Falls. It's something that they've used.
And the converse of that is, I have done a sabbatical where I rented for, I think it was 2 months,
Right.
and the organization had that available. And I needed to do that because I couldn't afford in the community I was in to go motel for 2 months.
Right.
And so,
And you may have that here with
ISU.
visiting people at ISU, where they come in and
Right.
they don't want to be in a hotel for a month or
Right.
two.
and
but-
ISU could actually own the property and have it as a
Right.
designated place where people come and go. I don't know. It's,
Right.
Anyway, something to look at.
Thank you.
We can move past that one. I think.
All right, so to Title 17, 05R development standards. A couple of quick things here. One is during our last update, we removed the neighborhood commercial zoning district because we had no land that had that zoning designation. So it wasn't being implemented. This is a vestigial remnant where this kind of snuck by us on doing that. Title 1705-570, this is our parking standards by land use. We're proposing that we remove so right now for a single family or 2-family home, we recommend that 2 parking spaces be provided off-street, so on their property, and 1 additional on-street. We're proposing to remove that on-street requirement. That's not something that's consistent with any other of our land use standards, and as those are developed, that on-street parking is public parking. So anyone can park there. It's not designated to each home. So as long as they meet their off-street parking requirement for 2 spaces for each unit.
how does that, I don't want to dig deep, but how does that affect the restrictions in the ISU area for parking?
I don't anticipate that impacting the restrictions there.
Because they
If we get new
get
develop-
a public parking place that's pretty much designated to that house.
I'm sorry?
They get a public parking place pretty much designated to that house because you have to have permit parking on public parking.
Sure, they have to park their unit off street, and it's restricted there. I think you have to have a permit through the police department to park within that area. But if anyone is building infill there, that on-street parking will be there regardless. So this will just kind of removing the cleaning up this section.
But ISU is not allowed, people who attend ISU are not allowed to park on the streets around, right around campus, there's some parking, but not in the neighborhoods. And we're permitted to avoid that. I had a quick question about and I'm sorry, I'm processing this a little slower than you're reading them, but the neighborhood commercial zoning district that we are deleting. I'm just curious about, I know in my neighborhood, in the college neighborhood, when you get close to like Clarkin Center, there's houses that are, offices or law firms or, different things like that. What's the, what do we call those?
That zone along at least along Clark, I believe along Center 2 is residential, commercial, professional, which is our mixed-use zone.
Okay.
It does allow for a smaller office space, residential, those type of
Like
mixed-use
real
space
estate,
being
law
there.
firm, that kind of thing?
Yes, that's correct. The reason, so we actually deleted this zoning designation during our last code rewrite. And again, we didn't have anywhere in town that had utilized that section of our ordinance. So we were just trying to clean it up and make things, easier to administer, less confusing. If we need to resurrect that moving forward as we move farther along in our plans, we certainly can.
And I was just curious, like what the difference between, what is different between this and the situation I described?
Sure, I respectfully could not speak to the what neighborhood commercial would allow for or wouldn't off the cuff. I can dive into that.
Oh, it's a
The area you're talking about was NCP before, and it's just basically a name change to RCP now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's still.
So it's covered, but we call it something different.
I'm sorry,
That
Heidi,
was before Carl.
could you say that
Thanks,
again?
Carl.
The area that Linda was talking about used to be NCP, but now it's RCP, but it's the same, a mixed use
Okay.
between some commercial uses and some residential uses within that zoning.
It's just the
Yeah.
name has changed, but not what it is.
Right, okay, thank you.
Can we go back to 1704? Did we miss that one?
I did not have anything in 1704, I believe.
The original
1704.
town site overlay.
I did. That was not in my summary. Excuse me. Yeah,
That's
so
one
let me,
thing
let's touch on the original town site really quickly. One of the things we're looking at here is under street orientation. We currently require that all front doors face the street upon which they're addressed. We're proposing that the front door of a structure shall face the public street on the nearest adjacent structure on which the building is addressed.
Is that only in the original town site?
Right now, that is only in the original town site, and that's specific to commercial uses where it's the nearest adjacent street when fronting multiple public streets. So right now, the way it's administered, any commercial or residential use within the original town site, that front door must face that nearest street. What happens if you get multiple adjacent streets, like a corner lot, for example, that front door can face the street furthest away from the front door, essentially, which does not really align with the purpose of our original town site, which is to foster a more pedestrian-oriented community. So is specifically to commercial development because if that was for residential also for the nearest adjacent, it creates a conflict with setbacks because the nearest adjacent actually ends up becoming their side yard. So that's why we specified that for commercial, but for residential, it will still face the nearest adjacent upon which it's
Is
addressed.
Yellowstone included in the original town site?
It is not.
So you-
Beyond Oak.
Beyond Oak.
Yeah.
So a business on Yellowstone, beyond Oak, could have a door that did not face Yellowstone,
That's correct.
and that would still be permitted.
That's correct.
Good, okay. I know of some that do that.
Yes. That does get me to one of our next revisions, though, is to title, it's 05610, which is requirements for single-family, two-family homes in all zoning districts. We are proposing a requirement that all front doors face the street upon which they're addressed. For residential zones, it's not the nearest adjacent. For the same reason, it'll create a conflict with their side yard. But that, along with helping to evaluate setbacks, also provides for life safety, locating that. And we've had recent developments where actually orient the back door to the nearest adjacent street because we don't have a standard like this.
I missed what you said. It creates a conflict with what?
I honestly don't remember.
You said that. You said side yards.
It
Side
creates a
yard.
conflict with their side yard setback. The side
Okay.
yard setback is actually less than most residential than, for example, the garage setback.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. I'm almost through my presentation here, so bear with me. So title 1706100. This is another cleanup that we did this last time. For accessory dwelling units, we removed the requirement that they're all required to receive a conditional use permit, provided that they meet all the standards therein. So it's permitted, subject to those standards in all areas, in all residential zoning districts. We removed that from one section here, but there's this little section 1706-100C2 that language snuck through. So there are actually 3 spots it was located in, so we're just cleaning that up to be consistent with what we proposed. Memorialize that. And there was a citation that I had in my written text. There was some delay in getting our code codified online. So working from my text, there was still a citation error, but it has actually been corrected. So that was to accessory structures, and that is no longer an issue. So any additional questions?
Heidi.
Yeah, sorry, this is taking it right back to the start, but on the definitions for the front and side setbacks, the way I read it, that would take care of the situation that recently occurred with that house up on Andrew where there was some issues and concerns about the...
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes, and that is the case that spurred.
Yeah, and I think that some of the people that were concerned about that will be very happy to know that that's gotten cleaned up. So I just wanted to say thanks on that, and thank you for the things to cut red tape and to clean things up, and good job.
Thank you.
Super. Okay.
Now, I've got, I'll dive into that short-term housing versus
Thank
rental
you.
question
And
a little bit
I'm
further. All good.
That's good. Okay, super. Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 6 is Community Development Block Grant CDBG Policy and Procedures Manual. Neighborhood and Community Services staff will be present to review with council the policies and procedures governing the CDBG funded sidewalk program.
Did we need to do anything because number 5 is an action item?
No, they're all action items if you look. So
okay.
no. That will come back in front of us at a council meeting once they
It's
do
a
that.
slow action item.
It's
That's
a slow-mo.
Well, if we wanted to do anything, we legally
could
have
have.
to put action item on it now.
Understood.
We don't have to do it because of it. You're up.
I wasn't sure.
So yeah, that was one of those weird things, Chris, that the legislature did a year and a half ago that just doesn't make any sense, but
Got it.
it has to be there or we can't. If it isn't,
Got it.
we don't get
Yep,
use it.
appreciate the explanation.
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am Janine Mitchell. I am the CDBG Program Manager at the City of Pocatello. During your July 9th, 2020 work session, it was suggested that Center Street and Clark Street be considered for CDBG funds to be used for sidewalk repairs. Lisa and I have went over this, our guidelines and regulations, and we're going to report back to you for that. Lisa has sent out a really cool packet for you guys talking about our regulations. Per HUD regulations, LMI, which is a low moderate area, is a determination for sidewalk repair / replacements. LMA is an area benefit activity that benefits all residents of a particular area, with at least 51% of those residents being LMI, which is low moderate individuals. I know that this area has been asked about before, and at the time it was 44% LMI, so it did not qualify, but the census tract is being redone right now. We were trying to look up HUD stuff right now, and HUD's census tract for this is down right now, so we couldn't pull anything new. You guys do have 3 letters from previous business, 2 letters from a previous business on Clark, and one that was it was a resident on Arthur that applied for funding. One was in 2009, one was in 2010, and the resident was in 2016 that were denied because they were in not residential areas, not 51 LMI. If a business owner would like to access our funds that is not in an LMA area, they can access our funds through an application, but that business owner has to be an LMI. So they have to meet all of our qualifications, like a traditional subrecipient or a traditional home. So they have to be an LMI person. They have to give us all their tax returns, all of their monthly income, their bank statements, and all of their personal and business liabilities. Also, if they have co-owners, they have to do that as well. Does anybody have any questions? So So being funded by HUD, everything has regulations, and this one's pretty. So again, we have to meet regulations for this, and the regulation for sidewalks again is an LMA definition, which I can't remember what part of your packet, but it says Appendix B, and the national objective is LMA. What states right there that 51% of the LMA area has to be low-income individuals.
How is the area defined?
Census block.
Census block tract.
So just that block that it's
Yep.
in?
So that's why we've been doing a lot in the Bonneville neighborhood. We've been doing a lot of sidewalk projects. The one we had just finished, and then sidewalks closed down from October 1st through the end of February. But we just did curb cuts in front of, oh my word, what's it called?
Health West and Optimus Park.
What? Health West and Optimus Park. We did 2 curb cuts, and then we did some neighborhood ones, and then we did, and then it's low census tract LMI over in Old Town in the residential areas. So we've done some over in Clark, and then right before in September during the shutdown, we did a huge block on Sherman to 9th to Sutliff. It was 15 houses. So that's what our regulations are for us, that they have to be LMA, so low income area, and then those people within the LMA area, 51, has to be residential, and they have to meet the LMI area.
Do we essentially have, and this would be a job, I know, so, have we GIS'd, for example, all around town, where our sidewalk and curb issues are, and so that we can then prioritize them? Because Old Town has some, especially if you're not sighted, if you don't die because of the sidewalk, you get hit in the head with a low-hanging tree branch.
Right. I don't believe so, but what we do is, because we only have so much money, right?
Right.
So there's no program income, that we have program income for our home rehab. Sidewalk there's not, so we have X amount of dollars, and we have 7 years to spend that. So we don't really put it out as people can apply for our money, but we also, what we do as staff, we walk around, and when we're at homeowners' houses in the north, in Old Town, we'll see the sidewalks.
Right.
And we've called Jared, who is our right-of-way guy, and he goes out there. They also have to be deemed dangerous by our right-of-way engineers. And that's where we've got a lot of staff dig projects, because we've been walking around a lot in our areas and have seen them. And then if we are out there doing our lead program or our home rehab program, we tell them at that time.
I'm wondering if there isn't a way to, get that a little bit more, I don't know, organized, so that we know we're working, on the highest priority areas, or can come up with whatever criteria are going to be used to designate what are those priorities. Because as you say, money is limited, and I would hate to think that just because by accident there wasn't something happen that had a staff member being in a particular area, that those residents were, had a different set of opportunities.
Right. And we also, so like I said, it's not just us, it's so our right-of-way tech, Jared goes out there, and if he sees a sidewalk, he will issue a citation, and he's really good about telling the homeowners about us. So there was a house on Randolph that they went out, there was a complaint, and we actually, it was a rental, so the rental part did that part, and then our money took out the tree and fixed their area.
And is that Jared as opposed to our Jared? A city, is he also a city employee?
He's the right-of-way engineer.
Okay.
So they have to be deemed dangerous by our engineers, and so.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if there's a way between that function of the city and the efforts that you're making, if there's a way to coordinate those a bit in in a slightly different way so that priorities, can be assigned, and we know that we're being comprehensive. I mean, I don't know if there's a way that can happen, or...
So and I don't know if this is even a thing, but it seems like we have our street department that does a LiDAR thing. In fact, I know we do over all of the roads in Pocatello, and it gives us a grade. And but 5 years ago, the grade wasn't great, but we've been able to make a lot of improvements on our streets. And so the streets are really in really good shape right now, according to that study. Is there a LiDAR thing for all the sidewalks in the area? Is there the ability to do so? And if so, is that something that CDBG money could actually pay for so that we could have that comprehensive plan that Councilmember Stevens is talking about?
CDBG money cannot pay for that. I'm not sure if engineering has done that. I know that we have three big sidewalk projects that will be coming out the 1st of March, because we are shut down for 4 months. But I don't know if engineering does the sidewalk plans.
So certainly engineering does not do that, and so because it would fall under CDBG. But you're saying there's no funding with CDBG that might help with some of the, at least identification of what the sidewalks look like and what condition they're in, so that we could put a priority list together. Because right now, I agree with Councilman Stevens, what we're doing is we see this, this is bad, but we don't know if that's worse than over here. We just know we're looking at this one, and so we're jumping from place to place to place when we find it, opposed to actually having a comprehensive.
In addition to that, when you only have one place, like one house that you're going to fix, you probably lose the scale of efficiency, because a contractor would probably cut prices if they were doing a whole block, for example. And you prioritize, this is a really bad area, but next to it's not so great either. Let's get the whole block done. This have a scale of efficiency here, because a contractor will do this by being in one place for a larger project.
Or you could even do that street by street and say, this street has 6 places that need help, and as long as we're on that street, we could.
So Heidi?
Yeah, so kind of what prompted this was our idea of those being the main corridors, that a lot of people drive on, and that a lot of people, even if they may live a block or two back, that's still something that they're, invested in having that look good. And I'm sorry if you kind of maybe went over this when you were given your first information. I was trying to quickly look at the information that had been passed out and kind of digest that. So without knowing exactly where that census tract is that includes Clark and Center, I know you said at the time it wasn't LMA, but that it probably might be now after the next census. Is that right? I'm just clarifying.
It might be, but it has to be 51% residential LMI.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and then I was just looking at this other one that was the Arthur Street one.
Yep.
And it was talking about how some of the, their businesses on Arthur. So is that basically killing our dreams here in
So
this
that's
area
why he did
also?
not qualify on Arthur, because he was not 50% LMI residential.
Okay, but
he was
relating
considered,
to like Clark Street, there is a lot of residential, but there are some commercial. So, I mean.
So we can go up so far. So I think that one is on the Art is Clark and.
You got Clark and 15th or something on one of these.
Yeah, because you have a long ways on Clark from.
Well, 800 block of East Clark is what you got.
Along the letters.
So can you do
those are just
sidewalk
the
in front of a
letters.
business if it's within
Yeah.
a qualifying zone?
If it's 51% residential LMI, we can
Then
do
you can, it's not like you have to go just in front of houses, and then you can't do the insurance company.
Yep, and that's what we've been doing too. So the last 2 years at least, and I've been doing this, we haven't just been doing block by block. Like we'll go out there, and our engineering staff is really great. We'll go out there because one specific block is being called because it's dangerous, but then we go out and we see all these others, and we do city blocks. When we open back up again in March, we're going to be doing a really big one on Hayden and 8th. Putting a curb cut, I don't know if you've been on there, but there's a curb cut on the housing side of Hayden and 8th, and it leads to a crosswalk and leads to a curb and gutter. And that's where a lot of people take their kids to school and go to Sika. So that'll be a new one coming up, and that's going to be a pretty pricey one.
So I have Heidi and Rick, then I don't know if I had somebody over here.
Sorry, I have one more thing. So on the, when you were talking about the, like the dangerous issue that can be addressed through code enforcement, what exactly would classify as that? Is it really just like a tree root and it's raised and it's a tripping hazard? I mean, where does like a totally disintegrated curb come into play? I mean, I don't know really, it's not ideal, it's not to our current standards, but like to help us understand to
I don't do that part, that's engineering.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when if we get a personal application into us that needs our sidewalks done, or we walk and see it or anything, engineering staff goes out there and they have criteria. I think they've told us before, but I can't remember. I think the grade has to be so far off of it, or sorry if I'm saying this wrong, engineering, but grade has to be so far off and plant roots. There is criteria, I just don't know, they tell us.
Okay, so I guess that kind of leads me to, my next question for you, which is maybe after going back and listening to some of our discussion before and some of our ideas about how we can help improve the community as a whole and maybe get some people some grants or access to grants and connect them so that it betters everything. Help us understand how can you help us realize that dream? Like, are you saying, sorry, there's nothing we can do from CDBG, you're gonna have to think of another way? Or is there a way that you know that we can, how can we move forward, even if it's just small steps to accomplishing some of this that we're hoping to do?
As long as it's in an LMI area and the people are 51% LMI, that's our federal regulations. That's cut and dry with what we can do with our money. So besides
do we need to get together? Do we need to get
if you want to
partners? Do we need to get staff? I mean, how do we collaborate and get something happening rather than just, we'll have to rely on, because that's what we've had the problem before, is that we're just waiting for somebody to
Come forward.
this guy to come and say, hey, I want to do it, but we want to get the word out to them and be able to maybe get some efficiencies like Councilmember Gray was saying.
I think we are doing a lot better. Like I said, we've started to, when we are going out with our lead program, because it's all over the city, and our home improvement program, we are taking applications to those homeowners and letting them know. Engineering, when they go out there and find dangerous, they go out there and tell about our application. We actually get a lot of applications and turn them into big staff projects that we're not just doing in front of one person's house. We're opening it up and doing a whole city block.
It sounds like federal regulations are a hindrance, because this person here met under everything there but the 51% of residential stuff, and so that's, I guess what we need to do is figure out how and we can work
So the area
that.
we're talking, we don't know yet, so once we get the census number, should we come back?
And I was going to say, we would need to find out exactly what the area includes in order to determine the 51%, because I think possibly you would meet that along Clark and Center, but if you're going back at all into those neighborhoods, especially if you're going into the college neighborhood or the upper university neighborhood, I think you'd have trouble with the 50% LMI. Those houses get pretty nice in that area. So it depends exactly on how we're defining it.
Can you get us a map of what is that?
It is, but our last map with our census tract is 2010.
Yeah.
So a lot of it shows the business area, and we did not want to bring that today because a lot of it does show the business area, and we didn't want to confuse you guys with that because the business. So it does show that Clark and Center are LMI because it can't really bounce and stuff, but they are not. It's kind of. So they show in our map, but they actually are not LMA or LMI because they're not 51% residential. But yeah, we do have a map. We can give it to you. Just know that there's a lot of businesses working there that will not fall under that 51%.
Yeah, well, see, I can think of one place on Center Street there's a residential house and a business. The residential house really does need sidewalk in there. But because there are two of them that abut each other in the alley, you don't get to 51%, it's 50-50. That's one of the clinkers in here, so to speak, that prevents some of that. Now, maybe we could be creative and have somebody cede a little bit of their alleyway to the other property. You know, I mean,
Maybe get 51%.
theoretically, we could get to 51% if they give 2 feet or something. And they're not giving up any real property because it's an easement.
When will we have the new census tract?
That's a good question.
No clue.
Probably way late.
Yeah, we'll see. So we got Rick, and then after that, I think Roger, maybe that.
Heidi's questions took care of mine.
Okay.
And you're not-
And you're good. And Chris, I saw you do, but maybe that
Well,
was.
I'm just wondering, to Heidi's point, I mean, can we have an action takeaway from this conversation? I mean, just something. Doesn't have to be, okay, this is the answer, this is the solution, this is what we're doing, but rather than simply talk and leave, is there some action step that we can take that would further this bigger picture? I'm really
Yeah.
interested in that.
I don't want to just.
My reaction to the whole conversation is we probably need our engineering staff to walk Center Street and Clark Street. You know, do it in increments, label what they see as the damaged sidewalks or whatever. Then they can present that to this group. This group then can determine if there's an LMI overlay or whatever, and see if there are identified bad sidewalks that fit the criteria that this group has. I mean, it's some labor, but we got to have some labor to get some results.
Mr. Mayor, does the engineering staff have access to the equipment that's used to survey our streets?
No.
Or is that done by a consultant?
That's all
We
done by
hire
a
that by-
consultant. That's all done by a consultant. But what I'm hearing, and I think that what it sounds like is there's a couple of action items that I think that can happen. Number one, I think the engineering might need to walk that and see what it looks like and give us an idea of what that looks like. Just because they claim that it's bad or whatever doesn't necessarily mean. And so
And I
we
would
would
start
need.
with Center Street because we have parades and stuff up and down there, and we are able to.
Yeah, but what we need is also to have a discussion, maybe once that's done, have a discussion with HUD to find out, okay, what does this look like? This is the situation. What can we do to make our dream a reality?
Yeah, and there may be grants that we can apply for beyond CDBG, because we got, blocks and blocks of South Fifth under a grant program.
Look for grants and also see what what is available from HUD. I mean, we might be able to do some things. We just are maybe not asking the right questions. Heidi?
Well, I was just going to say, along that same line, if we can get something like this, I mean, we're picking these areas because these are just viewed by a lot of people, but if people start noticing, hey, that's looking really good, and wow, and then the word starts getting out that, yeah, did you realize, and we can help people make those connections, that's going to help us get to maybe people in the other areas that could also benefit from it, I just think it'll be great.
And once again, I think it demonstrates that even if we're not there yet as a community, we care. And when people come to visit us, prospective either residents or companies bringing employees, they identify us as a community that understands that walkability and aesthetics do actually matter. So I guess with that, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, and then Linda will.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion since this is an action item.
Well, I have some questions first. One is actually not a question, it's a comment, but I will say, and I don't know if it involves CDBG funds and your efforts or not, but a lot of people on Clark, at least, I'm not quite sure about some, have been fixing their sidewalks. So things have improved since we first started talking about it and looking about it. It's much better than it was. So people are doing that. But the other question I had, because I walk both of those streets, and the biggest issue I have are the houses where there's no sidewalk. It's not the condition is bad, there's nothing, and they were grandfathered in. And where does that fall into this? How do we get sidewalk where there isn't any?
I don't know what grandfathered in means.
I think they were allowed to not have sidewalks.
Yeah, I think
because they didn't have them, and
That wasn't the code at the time.
Right.
So now nobody's.
And I would guess that those particular properties, just a guess, would qualify for some sort of grant for connectivity for people to get to the corridor community walkability.
Well, and also ADA.
So,
Wheelchair on grass and mud is difficult.
Well, that's not a TIF.
yeah, it's not,
Yeah, it
not
wouldn't
within
be
a
for
TIF
CDA.
district. If it
That's
were
not in a
within a
TIF.
TIF district, then we could do something with that, but.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened over here at
That's what,
Fred Meyer.
yeah, Fred Meyer TIF, they had done that with.
but there are some walkability grants that
Right.
could.
That we may be able to apply for. So tell me, is it the person residing in the house or is it the owner of the house? Because I believe there's a number of rentals along Center and Clark.
It's the owner of the house.
It's the owner that has to qualify for the low income.
Well, he's the one responsible for it. Yes, it's the owner.
That gets real tricky because how many
I thought you
owners?
couldn't even do it if you weren't owner occupying.
That's,
That's right, and a lot of them, that's why we only did the one house. So on Rudolph, the one was a rental house, they did it. Because they were supposed to do their own sidewalks, and we did the owner occupied next door.
Okay.
So, and they will not qualify owners because, their income, even if we can do them, their income would not qualify. Again, it's a strictly LMI income. So even if it is a rental property, they're not going to qualify because that is an investment property.
Right.
Okay,
That could be an issue.
That would also factor into that. There's no question about that. I know some programs you do qualify the renter, other programs you qualify the owner, so.
The only one HUD opened that up with is our lead program. It's for renters. And then again, our money cannot put in sidewalks. We can only do repair and replacements.
Yeah.
Right, so the issues I'm talking about could not be CDBG. We'd have to look at other grant options for those.
And I think we knew that it wasn't going to cover everybody, but we
did.
thought if at least the ones that were owner occupied, if they met the requirements
Right.
on the income and everything, that we could at least use CDBG for that portion, and then we would explore some of these
Yeah.
other
Right.
walkability or things. But we
Yeah.
need to get all together so that we can kind of have like a big.
We need an
A
idea of what it looks like.
comprehensive plan of that. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. We need an idea what it looks like. Okay. Chris?
Before I make a motion, I would like to know, can my motion, I know that motions can direct staff or request that you direct staff. Is that true of CDBG or not? I don't want to make I don't want to be
Direct
overstepping.
CDBG.
Depends on what you're.
Well, let me just make the motion and then you guys can fix it. So I move that we ask CDBG to look into other HUD or similar grants that might help with sidewalks. And that we have engineering staff walk Center and Clark and specifically identify what properties are there and where the sidewalks are bad. Because then we can start to look at whether they're owner occupied and so forth and so on.
Maybe to, just friendly, maybe instead of directing CBG, you direct building department, because aren't you guys under the building?
No, they're under
Planning.
planning.
We're under planning.
Under planning department.
But Can I say
But you
something?
can't do
So-
any
We're not
HUD
affecting
funding is going to
CDBG with
have.
our motion.
I was just
See,
going
that's
to,
what I'm saying, is if we change it to planning,
I was just going to say though that any other HUD money is going to have the same restrictions. We would need other types of
And
grants.
that's why I said, and other types of grants,
But that
because I
then
just
wouldn't
don't
be-
know enough.
That wouldn't then be them.
Right, so we can take HUD out, but I just, the mayor had mentioned talking to HUD, to see if there were other things available. That's why I included it. So,
I just meant if we're looking at other grants,
great.
then it wouldn't be these folks.
Yeah, can I
It would
just add
be
to that?
somebody else.
So, hold on, just a minute.
But it could
Yeah,
be
that
planning
was-
and zoning.
I just had further clarification on your
Development.
motion because you said direct CDBG, but I guess we would not know, are you talking about the advisory committee or are you talking about staff? So I'm wondering if we can just sort of sum it up easily to say direct staff and then the mayor can work with whoever that does need to ultimately be to look into further opportunities.
Yeah.
End of motion. Like, is that an easier way to?
That's probably
find all
broader.
remedies for our sidewalks.
Yes,
That would
and
be
then
broader,
everybody's
would be
here,
nice.
that whatever, if they're letter, if it's
That would be
whatever.
broader and nice, and what I would do is include like utility billing, when they're out looking at meters and stuff, they could also be making a note to see what it looks like. Janae, you had something.
Yeah, just so you know, so my staff, other than me, is all 100%. So I have two that are in CDBG. They can only be working on CDBG stuff. We get audited, and if their time goes to anything else, we're in trouble. Two of my other staff members are strictly lead. They can only work on lead projects. I am 50% planning, but we're pretty much maxed out. So we get audited. We look at, our timesheets, they look at exactly what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought we did.
So-
Just
And that's what-
Staff
and-
We're not general funded.
Yes, we need to
Sorry.
find who the
So I'm
appropriate
open to all
department.
these friendly suggestions with the caveat that I would like to have a end report back by XYZ included. So I don't know, Heidi or Roger, you seem to have a handle better than I do on what it is I'm trying to say. So do you want to word my motion for me or make the motion? I don't care. I'm not ego attached to it.
Well, you could have a motion.
I think the motion needs to be direct staff, because then it gets everybody that has an input to make their input. And I think that we ought to have in the motion specifically targeting first Center and Clark Street, because that's been our discussion point. And then the report back could be relative to Center and Clark Street. And I don't think that takes forever. I think if we got it back by the April 1st, we would be in a position to see what the construction season allows and be able to be somewhat responsive. So direct staff, Center and Clark Street, and April 1st deadline.
So I move that we direct staff under the mayor's supervision to assess the situation on Center and Clark relative to sidewalks and report back to council no later than April 1, 2021.
Okay, sorry, I just had another question. I would like it to include not just sidewalks, but also curb and maybe some issues with landscaping, like if we're gonna
Okay.
partner with an outside entity to do some xeriscaping or something on some of those kind of rundown looking
Right.
areas where people aren't mowing and watering. I mean, there's a lot, and I don't want the motion to get too crazy. Just another question that I had though also, April 1st seems fine to me, but I'm just curious how it will relate to budgeting. Like if we are going to come away from the next meeting with maybe an idea that we need to set aside something or another, will that be
I think
too late?
April 1st gives you a deadline.
Think that's okay?
In each budget.
Okay.
Yeah, we're early enough in the budgeting process that we would have, I agree, we would have some ability to
And
say we're going to
because
spend
that budget's
X.
amended all the way through till July.
Sorry, not trying to be difficult. I'm not, but
Well, we're just
there's
really
a lot of
starting
things
the
we can do.
budgeting
Yeah.
I will
process.
amend my try to remember.
Start with a new one.
So-
Okay, do we have to do anything with the old one?
No, just
Or do we
second.
draw it?
It's not been seconded,
There.
so it's-
Okay, so I move that we direct staff in cooperation or under the mayor's supervision to assess Center and Clark Street for sidewalks, curbs, landscaping, and other aesthetic and safety concerns
I'll second that. By April 1st.
by April 1st, 2021.
Then I'll second that.
Sorry.
Okay. So we have a motion by Stevens and a second by Bray. Connie, could you call it up? When you finish, you get caught up.
And I'm not trying to like stick my fingers in your pie or anything, so please understand, I totally appreciate everything you're doing.
Okay.
Sometimes I just don't know what the options
Stevens?
are.
Stevens?
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Lurick.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions?
Thank
We're
you
too
all.
early for lunch.
Thank you.
Too early for, yeah. Too early for lunch, too late for anything else. All right. Okay, super.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, council, for your participation today. With that, we are adjourned.